The purpose of this hearing is our first committee of the whole budget hearing for the proposed FY24 budget. We have 15 departments on to be heard this evening, and so the protocol that we'll follow is the same that we've done in the past. We'll call forward the department head or the deputy that's present to speak on behalf of the department. They will have an opportunity to present the highlights of their portion of the proposed budget, and we will then move into questions from members of the council relative to that specific department's budget before moving on to the next department. The first department that we will hear from is the school department, and I believe that the superintendent is with us virtually. Mr. Superintendent, can you hear us? Superintendent Warwick, we can see you, but you are muted. Mr. Warwick?
Yep.
Yes, the floor is yours.
Oh, thank you. I'd like to present our school department budget for FY24. We have a $588 million general fund budget, which includes a 7.3% increase over FY23, or $39.8 million. Our all funds budget is $792.3 million. $45.4 million was allocated to the schools directly, which includes our Student Opportunity Act allocation, which was $31.5 million, which we gave directly again to the schools, $1,850 per student. Schools are continuing to spend $80 million in the ESSER funding, which again, we gave directly to the schools. Some of the highlights of our budget are that we were the first city or town in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts to do universal preschool for 3- and 4-year-olds. We're continuing to expand that program due to demand, adding 16 additional classes next year. But it's been an overwhelming success, and we're going to continue to work at that. We believe that's going to be a game changer for our kids as they enter elementary school and on a trajectory through high school. We are fully staffed the new building for DeBerry Swan School, which will open in the fall. We provided for increased internships. We always had many internships coming out of Putnam. Now we have all of our high schools, our students being placed in internships with businesses throughout the city, which we think is going to help the kids tremendously down the road. We expanded our family and community engagement office in response to information we got from the public relative to the Portrait of a Graduate engagement process. We've expanded our tuition assistance programs with AIC and BayPath to help provide some of our applicants, diverse applicants, with assistance with getting their applications and their licensures for their positions through the state. We've also expanded our vocational Chapter 74 programs, which traditionally we had just at Putnam Vocational Technical High School. Now we're going to open programs at both SciTech and Central to expand those opportunities, because we had a large waiting list at Putnam, and those programs are very popular. Transportation, there's an increase of 4.7% or $1.7 million due to charter school expansion, which continues. And all of the charter schools are citywide magnets, so the transportation piece is expensive. Actual inflation for transportation was 6.5%, the costs, and there was a cap in our contract for 4%, so that helped us. But still, we have that increase relative to transportation. That really is our budget in a nutshell, and we'd open it up for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. And also during the presentation, we were joined in the chamber by Councillor Allen, the chair of the Finance Committee, and also virtually by Councillor Edwards and Councillor Hurst. Are there any questions for the superintendent relative to the school department's proposed budget? Councillor Allen.
Thanks, Superintendent, for coming to this budget review. I've always been interested in the preschool stuff right from the start, and we've been incrementally adding preschool slots, I guess, over time. Is this, how do we, has there been results, positive results from the incremental changes we've made over time by offering preschool to more kids? Is that, and also, when you say I'm not sure I heard their words right, but when we're fully offering that, is that, how many kids is that would be offered free preschool?
So we're offering it to all 3 and 4 year olds in the city, and it's a full day program. We're offering it at every school in the city, plus our 3 pre-K centers. We've been adding to our preschool since 2012, funding more and more classes. And for a long time, it was just a half-day program. We went to a full-day program, which takes obviously significantly more funding and space, hence the expansion of the, with the 3 preschool centers. So we're offering it to in the vicinity of 2,000 students. Patrick Roach, am I close on that one?
Yes, you are.
Okay.
2,000. Okay, great. And do we track the cost and the results? How those kids are doing later on? Maybe it's too hard to do that if we're just getting started. But if we've been doing it since 2012, do we see an improvement in their learning, et cetera?
Yeah, no question about it. The kids in even our half-day program showed tremendous progress. In our full-day program, they really are entering kindergarten really ready for the kindergarten curriculum and the elementary school curriculum. So it's going to make a big difference down the road. But we do track the results as well as the costs, and the results have been tremendous.
That's great. I'm a believer in that. And I guess my last question on it is, do we segregate out the costs so we know that to educate these 2,000 kids who are 3 and 4 year olds, it costs X amount of money, and that we can justifiably spend that. I don't want to say justifiably spend that money. We can segregate out the cost. Let's just leave it at that.
Yes, we can. We can, absolutely.
Is that offered in schools all across the city? Must be.
We offer it in every elementary school, plus we have 3 pre-K centers now. So we've expanded it to every neighborhood school throughout the entire city in the last 2 years.
And how different is that from other districts? Are they doing the same thing, or are we a leader in this?
We're the only one in the Commonwealth that have done universal full-day pre-K.
Wow.
For the entire population.
That's great. Congratulations. That's great.
Thank you.
I'm all set, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Allen. We've also been joined virtually by Councilor Whitfield, and at this time we'll go to Councilor Walsh.
Unmute myself. Thank you, Superintendent Warwick, for joining us. As you and Councilor Allen were speaking, I'm picturing these 3 and 4 year olds that seem so young to me. Are they on buses? Is that how they get there? Are they
Yeah. For our preschool centers, we've been able to do some busing for some of the students. The others are we're trying to assign to their neighborhood schools and the parents transport.
Yeah,
But we do have some busing for the preschool centers. And our special needs students get busing, they get special needs transportation. And there's a large segment of the population that receives special transportation.
Because Dan, frequently you see the school buses and you see the little faces on the buses as they go by. And I'd hate to think of 3 and 4 year olds having a long bus ride. What time do they have to get there?
They have to be there. They arrive between 8:30 and 10 of 9.
Okay, so that is not too bad. Well, I'm especially interested to hear about the internships. Is that a new program, the internships for the schools?
We've always had internships we called co-op through Putnam,
Yeah,
but we hadn't had as many in our other schools. So we've really, we got a lot of feedback in the Portrait of a Graduate input to our strategic plan on how we really needed to expand that program. And we hired a new person to run that program who used to work at Mass Mutual, Pam Matheson. And now we've expanded it to all our major high schools, and we have over 120 kids out already, and we're continuing to expand that.
and can you give me an example of what some of the internships might be? Are they all to do with the trades, or are they different?
No, the ones from Putnam have to do with the trades, but the other internships could be in businesses in an area that the kids are focusing on. We've got some working in preschool. We have some that are in businesses like Mass Mutual. So they vary depending on the student's interest. But Putnam always had their own tie to their vocational careers.
Right,
That
right.
continues to go on, but this new program now offers that opportunity to other students across the city.
Well, it sounds like you have some great programs going for the students. But let me ask you about the quality of the teaching core. How would you describe that? And are there vacancies? Are you finding it hard to recruit for teachers?
Yeah, it's a challenge nationally and across the state. Massachusetts happens to have very difficult licensing, so that's a challenge. Over the last 3 contracts, we increased our pay scale. We were not competitive with Western Mass. Now we're more than competitive across Western Mass for our teachers, and that's helped us recruit and retain. So we're fighting like everyone else. Some areas are harder than others, like special education is more difficult to recruit and retain staff, but we're working hard. We're putting people through licensure programs we created to help them get licensure. And I think we're better off than most in that area.
Okay, and I know you talked about you had an increase to your budget. Is that correct?
Yes, we did.
Okay, so is there any program that wasn't funded that you would like to see funded? Or have your basic needs been taken care of?
No, our needs have been taken care of, Catering. The Student Opportunity Act money really is a big help to us. And it really, came in from the state and the urban centers that were traditionally the most poorly funded, benefited greatly from that. So we have our needs met in this budget.
Okay, and we do hear some conversation about after-school activities and transportation. Is that provided? Or is that something the parents have to do?
So there's a combination, but at our secondary schools, there's programs at every school, and there's some transportation available as well.
Okay, and I don't know if you were able to see that young group that came to the city council meeting last week, the Springfield Youth Cheerleaders. They came in second in the nation.
Wow.
In a cheerleading competition. And I know they're not part of a school, but I hope that they can continue to do good things, because that's a huge deal. They competed with schools all over the country and came in second. And they're all Springfield students. So
that's fabulous.
it made a big impression on me.
I didn't get to see that, but thank you for sharing.
Okay. Thank you, Dan. Appreciate you coming in.
Thanks, Catering. Good to see you.
You too.
Thank you, Counselor Walsh. Counselor Whitfield.
Mr. President, Superintendent, hi, Pat. So I do have a couple questions, and then a couple comments as well. So we were talking about preschool. I kind of came in on the tail end of that. And so the feedback that I've been getting from the community are the hours are really, really hard to manage without before school and after school sort of programs. And I don't know if you guys or your team looked at any of that. So I know that some parents will not enroll their students because they work past the 3:30 time frame and have to go in earlier. And I know when my son was in preschool, I don't know, 15, 16 years ago, as a netty, they did have the before and after school program right at the schools. So is that in discussion at all?
Yeah, we've been constantly working to look to see what we can do for all of our schools and the preschool. We've doubled the time in preschool now. We've gone from a half-day program to a full-day program to respond to what the parents are looking for. And we're looking to continue to partner and help parents find the before and after care and seeing what agencies we can work with to expand that. But that's a challenge. Now, some private providers offer the 7 to 5:30 kind of care. We don't have that in the public schools, but a lot of the private providers have that for families who need that. And that's available. But we're always trying to expand the before and after school programs to help families. Right now, it's hard for some of the providers to get staff because staffing is very, very difficult. So we've worked with the YMCA over the years. We've worked with various agencies to help us. And we continue to do that to try to work with parents. But something we're going to continue to try to work on, Tracy.
Thank you. It's definitely needed. And if we're going to increase the budget, I think that would be a good initiative to work on so that the kids can get in school earlier, but also so the parents have support with getting them there. So the transportation question that Kateri asked was also a great question. The second question I have is around mental health. I think I have talked to the youth in that group that is talking about they don't have a lot of support when it comes around to mental health in the Springfield Public Schools, and they feel unsupported. And so I was looking in the budget and I don't see an ask or increase for funds for like mental health services outside of guidance counselors, because when I spoke to them personally, some of them didn't feel comfortable with their guidance counselors, felt like their guidance counselors were just, doing their job and would like more support from maybe a support agency. So has there been any conversations around that?
Yeah, there's been great conversations around that. And we spend about $30 million in mental health services in the budget. We're looking to continue to expand that to meet the need. One program we offer that most districts don't, on top of the counseling program, which we have a fully staffed counseling program, is City Connects, where we have City Connects workers in every school connecting kids to clinical services and wraparound services to help. So bringing clinics into the schools. So that kind of partnership is ongoing, but we have that working in every school now. We're continuing to take a look at it and seeing where we need to expand some of those services in different schools. We've given all of our Opportunity Act money directly to our schools to look at their services, and they're taking a look at their budgets and their services on how to spend that money. Some of them will need more mental health services. Some are staffed pretty well there now. So the schools will make those decisions with the Opportunity Act money. So it is built into the budget.
So the 30 million outside of the city support, what else does it go to when it comes down to mental health? What else?
We have counseling, we have the City Connects program, we have psychologists, we have a bevy of programs and supports to students across all the schools.
Well, if you can get that list to me or someone in your team, that would be very helpful, because I don't think that the public knows about it. And then on that note, with the City Connects, are they culturally competent folks that, are diverse and really have the the education on different cultures? Are they really culturally competent staff?
So we provide a lot of training on cultural competence, and they get our full PD program on that. And we really had an eye towards diversity in filling those positions. So there's a lot of diverse people in those positions.
Okay. All right. And then finally, this is a difficult one because we talk about how the graduation rate has increased and the dropout rate has decreased. I look at some of the tools that are being used just to get these kids through, but then when they come to the colleges, because I worked at STIC and HCC, they are not ready. They are not ready. So I want to know, like, are these programs really working? Have we talked about, even testing these kids? I know that there are some partnerships with STIC and HCC in the Springfield Public Schools, but some of them are not ready and they're graduating. And I know a few in my family that are not ready. So what do we do to get them ready? Like,
So we continue to try to prepare the kids as best we can. In Massachusetts, the kids have to pass the MCAS to graduate, which is the hardest test in the country. So they do pass the MCAS in order to get their diploma. So in Massachusetts, we're one of 7 states in the country that do that. Now, sometimes kids will struggle in college, so we continue to get them ready. They do get a lot of supports in our schools, and the colleges have to be prepared to provide supports to students when they come to college. We do provide a lot of support to get them, but we get them through the MCAS, and we're getting them onto that level at rates. We've had the biggest increase in graduation rate and the biggest decrease in dropout rate in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So, but we continue to do dual enrollment, early college programs, and we've significantly increased our advanced placement offerings, which help kids succeed in college. So we're continuing to work at it so they can succeed in college.
And I'm gonna say this, and it's no fault of yours, Dan, it's probably more of a state issue, Superintendent, but having kids pass the MCAS does not measure success. I think real world hands-on experience is what gives them the education that they need to be successful in the future. And so, I mean, it's a lot of stress. I have children in the Springfield Public Schools from ages 8 all the way to 16 right now that live with me, and they struggle. So we have to look outside of the public schools to get real world and hands-on experience. And I don't think that that's a fault of yours or a problem of yours, but there should be more integration with hands-on real world experience outside of trade schools, because they do get that level of experience. So that's more of a
I actually agree with you. I'm not sure I'd have the MCAS as a graduation requirement, but that's not up to us. That's why we're increasing the internships and increasing the vocational opportunities for our kids.
But I hope that one day, as a legislative body, the school committee, along with the city councils, will do work in advocating for our students to get some of these rules changed, because it's up to us. And we will have the support of the Springfield Public School System, because MCAS is not a great measure of success. And that'll be my final comment. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you,
I
Councilor
agree
Whitfield.
with you, Tracy.
Councilor Hurst. Councilor Hurst.
Thank you, Mr. President. A couple questions, Danny. Good to see you.
Hey, Justin, how are you?
Just going off of Councilor Whitfield's last, or one of her last points with respect to, or actually what you said in response to the advanced placement offerings. What is our passage rate? I know I read an article in Mass Live where the individuals are scoring much higher than they previously scored. But I guess I wonder what is our rate here in Springfield of those individuals scoring a 3 or higher on the advanced placement test. Has that increased? Are we tracking that data? And can I have them? Can I have access to that data?
We can certainly get you that data, Justin. We've increased the numbers of students taking AP courses, and we've increased the passage rate. And it's a great opportunity for kids, even if they don't get the 3 or higher, to take AP courses, because the studies prove they do better in college, having taken AP courses. But we've increased both, and I'll be glad to get you those rates.
Yeah, definitely would love to have them, and would love to see whether they're increasing on a rate that the rest of the state is increasing on as well. The other thing that I hear mentioned oftentimes is the graduation rate and the dropout rate. Do we also take into account where our schools are faring amongst the state? The last I looked, felt like I saw one school that was in the top 65% of the schools in Mass. And, when last time I looked at our high schools, all 4 of them were in the bottom 10%. Are we looking at those numbers when we're analyzing how it is that we're doing as a district?
We always look, and our goal has been to narrow the gap with the state. And for the last 10 years, we've significantly narrowed the gap with the state. And our rates are higher than other urban centers with, our poverty rates. So we've made great progress in that area. And we always look at that every year, and that's our goal.
Okay. And then a couple other questions as it relates to the full day preschool. One of the concerns that I've heard from some of the other agencies is that Springfield Public Schools is ultimately going to bankrupt these agencies because they're attracting or they're taking their students and offering this free pre-K. Have we looked into that and the potential of working with the YMCAs of the world and the Head Starts of the world, who I would imagine are probably fighting for those same pool of students? Have we done any work along those lines? Because a lot of them rely heavily on pre-K from a financial standpoint and in order to survive.
Yeah, no, we've been working with that preschool coalition for a number of years now. And quite honestly, there's always going to be opportunities because they cover full year and they do 7 to 5:30. So there's always going to be an opportunity for them to have a place in the market. We're just taking the students who come to us because that's their choice. But there are other choices, and parents and families are going to make those choices because the schedule is a better fit for their working schedules. So, but we'll continue to work with the other agencies.
Are we offering those other choices, without sort of saying that, if you bring your kids to the Springfield Public Schools, they will be better prepared for kindergarten once they finish? I mean, are we being explicit in terms of the fact that there are other viable alternatives that parents can take advantage of? Because the other thing that I've heard happens is that they enroll into the Springfield Public Schools, and then they realize that the schedule itself doesn't necessarily accommodate their schedule, and then they in turn have to take the kids out of the Springfield Public Schools and go to one of those private providers.
Well, there definitely are better schedules for some families with the providers. So we don't, we enroll the kids that show up at PACE for our programs, but the other programs advertise and go on. Pat, I think we also included, Pat Roach is on, we included information at PACE about the private programs as well, right?
Yeah, we're implementing a referral to all the private providers. So we set up a IT system. So when families are enrolling, if our pre-Ks don't meet their needs, or if they have students younger than pre-K, like early ed, we'll be able to refer them to the private providers if that's a better need for them.
And we're tracking whether those students are being transferred out of those private providers to the Springfield Public Schools, just to sort of understand the effects and ramifications that expanding pre-K might have on those institutions.
Yeah, we're going to have a single person, or we're going to have multiple people, but a single person oversee the referral process. So we'll be able to track all the data.
Okay. And I guess, is there a way for us to identify all of the students that are pre-K eligible in the city of Springfield? Because the last time I looked, when I was talking to one of the providers, there are like 33% or a third of the kids who are not receiving any services. And so I just wonder whether we have a way in which we're tracking who those students are and actually reaching out to the parents or guardians of those students to really identify and get those students to be able to take advantage of a system that they haven't been able to take advantage of.
Yeah, believe it or not, our biggest influx of kids when we expanded to the all-day free pre-K for 3 and 4 year olds happened to be like the lower middle class. So the lower income students get the vouchers and they are able to go to the Head Starts and Square Ones. The upper income people can pay for the private preschools, and it was actually the lower middle class people who, that's where we got an influx of students because they just weren't attending preschool. So we were able to serve a whole bunch of the kids that never went to preschool in the past.
Okay, so we're able to identify who all of those students are and who also are not receiving any services whatsoever. Is that what you're saying, Pat?
No, we don't know the students that aren't being provided services.
So we got to get there, don't you think? Like that makes the most
Absolutely,
sense.
that's our goal.
Yep.
That's the goal.
We're
Okay.
doing our best to advertise that. That is our goal.
Okay. It just seems like we should have an idea of who those individuals are, right? Like we can't, we don't know whether we're servicing the individuals who need to be serviced if we don't know who needs to be serviced. So if, otherwise we're just, robbing Peter to pay Paul, right? Like we're just, we very well may just be taking from individuals who are, providing the services already. And it just seems to me before we do that, we ought to identify that population that is not being served at all. Okay, so all set on that. The last two questions, Mr. President, and I apologize. The budget for bus monitors and crossing guards, is that included in this budget?
Patrick?
Yes, it is.
So there is enough money allocated for crossing guards and bus monitors and all of the intersections and buses that we need to be served. Is that accurate, Pat?
We absolutely have enough positions in the budget. Our challenge has actually been hiring the staff to fill the positions.
And so that, I guess that leads me to my next point. Are we being creative and innovative in terms of hiring those individuals who are going to assume those positions, whether it's by looking at the pay scale and making sure that's accurate, whether, maybe we need to be innovative in terms of, I don't know, flexing their work schedules, potentially 4-day work weeks. I don't know. Sign-on bonuses, which, may make sense. Have we been innovative in terms of trying to hire those individuals? Because I feel like we're having that same issue all the time.
Yeah, I mean, we're always out there recruiting. We try to partner with different agencies around town that can give us referrals, and we do lots of advertising for the positions as well. But since COVID, it's been one of our toughest positions to fill.
Okay,
And the
I'd love
school
to hear.
committees increased the pay rate as well, Justin, to try to help us fill the positions. But those are tough, part-time positions are tough positions to fill in this economy.
I get it. I think the bus monitors especially rings home for me, because I know my child travels a good 30 to 40 minutes on the bus and he's only 7 years old. In addition, there was an incident in which that stemmed from my understanding is bullying on the bus that resulted in a loss of life that we haven't talked about. Or that hasn't been talked about. And so I just want to make sure that we're doing everything within our power to make sure that our students are safe, both when they're going to school, walking, as well as when they're riding the bus. And so my hope is that for this coming year, you all can come up with some formula to ensure that folks are safe when the parents leave them in our hands. So with that being said, that's all I have. Although I'm sorry, the busing. We need to make sure our buses are getting there on time. And we have enough buses to accommodate the children. My son's bus, I feel, is late every day. And I can only imagine that particular parent that has to leave work to pick up their bus, or is working hybrid and, is losing work time to having to go to school and actually pick up their student because their bus is late. So if we could just, I don't know how we can accommodate that, but it certainly is an issue. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Hurst. Let the record reflect that Councilor Curran has now joined us in person. We've also been joined virtually since our last speaker by Councilor Brown. And actually, Councilor Brown, the floor is now yours.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank you for all the work you do, Mr. Superintendent. Just have a few questions. As far as a lot of the things that I've dealt with in the state level, is a thing they call the cliff effect. A lot of individuals, they'll get jobs and promotions, and when it comes to daycare, it's almost you're almost better off not getting that promotion Have you guys ever, are you guys strongly thinking as far as like adjusting it and to, I think it should fit what we consider even middle class or upper middle class still in today's calculations based on the services available. It's not set correctly. How aggressively are you guys looking as far as the individuals who are applying for, some of these services? Are you taking in consideration middle class?
So are you talking about preschool services, Mela?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we're offering our preschool for free.
Okay. And as far as the actual pay itself, we're not aggressively, and I think a lot of people don't understand, even when it comes to your pay, when it comes to the teachers' pay, when it comes to the principals, the paras, we don't pay enough. We don't aggressively retain a lot of the educators. They go to other places. Is there something that we're doing to address some of that? Because it's almost getting where, a lot of our teachers and educators are going to where, the pay is better.
Yeah, no, Mello, that was a serious issue for us after the control board. And during the last 3 contracts, we've increased our pay to equal or above the average of Western Mass. But for years, we were way below and we were losing a lot of people. Consequently, we've been able to retain more of our workforce because the pay's increased so significantly.
Okay. And
that was a problem here.
Yeah, that's what I figured. But also another issue that I've been kind of been trying to find the answer out for a while. What's going on with the actual safety? We had a 15-year-old who did a violent act. I'm curious, what are they doing as far as truancy police? Do we ever have those in place? Do they exist? Because right where I live, at a certain time, a lot of these young individuals, they're out of school, they're walking around, and they're unsupervised. Is there such thing as truancy officers?
Yeah, Mallow, it's a serious issue and we've been working on that. We have attendance officers. We also have a partnership with the Sheriff's Department where he provides two of his correctional officers to help us and the cars to patrol the city with our attendance officers, getting kids back into school and working on that. We're talking about possibly expanding that to 4 for next year if the sheriff agrees to it. So, and we've actually hired more attendance officers and we have them out working on that. But even a more serious issue after the pandemic, getting kids back into school and beefing up those attendance rates. So we're working at it. If you see something out there, don't hesitate to give me a call and we'll get the teams out to those hotspots and continue to try to get those kids back into school.
Yeah, usually right there. It's been right there at Dunkin' Donuts and right there where that Popeyes, it was an individual who was assaulted back maybe a couple years ago by a group of commerce students. But I mean, that's something I definitely would want to work on. And also with the actual locker rooms. Is there anything we can do with the kids' locker room? Is there anything in the budget?
Yeah, there is. We're taking our ESSER money and we're giving it to the schools and they can take on those projects where they need to. And so we've done some locker room projects and I think a lot of the principals are planning to use our ESSER money to improve those situations.
Okay. And another thing while we're at the schools, how about the actual travel? I was kind of disappointed in the travel for the state champion girls team. They went on a school bus. Do we have funds allotted aside for our student athletes? Because we have a lot of state championship teams and I believe we're going to keep having continuous God willing, championships. Is there anything that we're doing to address any of that travel costs? Because it's kind of embarrassing for the travel, the way that women basketball team. I was very disappointed in how they felt.
Well, usually most cities and towns use the transportation vendor for those services. So
Okay,
they'd be the first student buses. Yeah.
okay.
So that's what we use. And when you go to games, that's what you'll see from other communities as well.
Well, I know they get, well, Peter Pan, there's people who I've seen, you know, we've
But
got buses.
we've had a few times where Peter Pan has stepped up and donated some of the other buses for some of the winning teams. So we've done a few of those things, but usually the transportation vendor is the one who provides that transportation.
Okay, and I have one last thing. Um, is there anything in the budget that would actually, I know we talk with mental health and we try to do a lot of those issues. I come from a religious background. Is there anything as far as actually hiring any ministers and allowing them to have some type of mentorship roles? I was kind of disappointed in the fact that we took prayer out of the school. Me coming from a Catholic school. I think a lot of times that disconnect and that fear of God, whatever you want to call them, is missing from our kids as far as even public safety. Is it possible to bring up any ministers on the budget? I mean, I don't care what denomination. Is there anything as far as that, bringing any ministers to kind of like, just kind of reflect with any of the students?
Yeah, there's the laws about separation of church and state, and in public schools, you can't bring in different religious groups.
Yeah.
So we can't do that by law.
Okay.
But if they're pursuing that in the neighborhoods, or that's a great thing. But we can't push that now.
Okay. No, I was curious because I do know that they did, change. I mean, with that law, and it's to me, it's disappointing. I know you can't really do much on it, but I do appreciate the work that you do, and continue to do the great job that you're doing. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mello.
Thank you, Councilor Brown. Councilor Perez. Councilor Perez, you are mute. There you go.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President. I'm a little bit under the weather, but I wanted to ask, when you was informing about the hiring of professional teachers, how are we doing with English as a second language when it comes to the hire?
So English as a second language is one of those critical shortage areas, Maria. That's exceptionally hard. You know that from your time on the school committee. So we're offering supports to get people licensed and to pass the test. And that's some of the new programs we're offering with the colleges, so that we can fill the ranks of those teachers and provide them support to get the licensure, because that's a tough licensure to get. So we have programs in place to help with that.
And I know in the past, one of the biggest complaint that I heard is the test itself. Are we working around that issue still?
No, you're so right, Maria. The testing in Massachusetts for licensure is an enormous problem and continues to be an enormous problem. We are working with the state to change that scheme of testing for licensure, but so far they haven't changed all the requirements. We have been using the emergency licensure process to get people in and train them up and actually pay to help them take their licensure tests. And we actually give them tutorials to help the licensure test. But the licensing in Massachusetts is difficult in the testing. And the state, even though we've lobbied to change it, and will continue to do so, and I know you helped us with that when you were on the school committee, is something we still need to push, because there's more changes that need to be made at the state level, no question.
Thank you, Superintendent Warwick. I just wanted to bring aware, because if the demographic that show in the city of Springfield is when it comes to the Latino population is growing. And I think that's one of the most crucial issues that I'm finding, and we need to bring awareness to the legislature of what is going on. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. President.
I agree with you, Maria.
Thank you, Councilor Perez. Are there any further questions for the superintendent relative to the school department budget? Seeing none, Without objection, we will move to our next department. Thank you, Mr. Superintendent, Mr. Roach. The next department we'll review is the Office of the Mayor. I know that our former council colleague, now Chief of Staff Tom Ash, is present. Councilor Ash, welcome back to the chamber.
Thank you, Mr.
And the
President.
floor is yours at this time.
Thank you, sir, and thank you, the City Council, for being here. Our budget, as you probably all know, is pretty straightforward. There's not much of a variance from last year. Same amount of FTEs, and the only slight change is the statutory change to the mayor's salary effective January 1st. So that's really the only change.
Thank you, Mr. Ash. Are there any questions for Mr. Ash on the Office of the Mayor? Seeing none, without objection, we'll move to the next department. Thank you, Mr. Ash. I'm going to call forward the City Clerk. Madam Clerk, I know you have several departments that you oversee, and so we will hear from you on the City Council budget. We'll take questions there. Then we'll do the City Clerk, Board of Elections, and 311.
Good evening, councilors. It's strange to see you on this side of the podium for a change. The first budget that I'm presenting is the City Council budget. There is an overall increase that you'll notice of 14%, and the salaries and wages is where that is reflected. The change in the salaries and wages line is due to the statutory change for your salaries, which is a 40% increase. It's only a half year, so it's from July through June. That's the only increase.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Are there any questions for the clerk relative to the City Council's budget? Councilor Whitfield.
Thank you, Mr. President. Is the 2 or 3% increase in there for staff?
Yes. So there is their cost of living adjustment
Yeah, what percentage is that?
of the budget?
I mean, is it like a 3% increase across the board?
No,
Like-
it's, I believe it's 2% increase across the board.
Okay. And then, I was looking at the subcommittee meetings and I don't see ARPA listed, as one of the subcommittee meetings being held. Or like, there's just some subcommittee meetings missing. Did the team just pick and choose, some highlights or?
Is that in the narrative section?
Yeah.
That's probably was my mistake in not including it. I prepared it with the City Council staff, so I don't think I included that one and possibly some of the other ad hocs, which were the ones that were appointed later in the year.
Oh, okay. And then I know that we have had in the past that educational budget that I don't know if people are really utilizing.
They're
Is
not.
that-
Councilor Govan, I believe, and Councilor Letterman are the only two that have utilized it. It's $6,500, so each councilor is able to use up to $500 and be reimbursed.
So can that money be used to educate the community as well? So for example, if we want to educate on something like property tax, and we wanted to provide food or something for the members that join, is it something that could be used for that? It's still education, but it's not for us, or is it for our personal training?
I believe that the way it was listed in the budget is as professional development for individual counselors. I don't know if that's something that we can talk to finance about in order to maybe make it discretionary, as long as it goes to some type of professional development, whether it be educating the public or educating the counselors individually.
Okay, that would be something I would like to work on, because if I'm just speaking for myself, could use it to educate the public on some financial issues, or even what's happening in the administration overall, that would be helpful for me. But also, I think that to use these funds, it has to be on a reimbursement basis, correct?
Well, it doesn't specifically say, but typically when there is professional development, you either pay ahead of time, we'd get invoiced by the entity, let's say, for example, MMA would invoice us and then we would pay them directly, or the counselor would pay out of pocket and then we would reimburse the counselor. But if you're looking to educate the public or use it in some way I can look into it and then let you know.
Okay, thank you. And if the other counselors do not choose to use their 500, could it roll over to other counselors?
These are all questions I think that we can take offline.
Okay. Well, I wanted to ask them in public to make counselors aware of what I'm asking, and definitely be glad to discuss further offline.
And we have the bulk of this year's FY23's funds that are still in the budget, so we can have this conversation hopefully by the end of the week for these funds.
Yes, sounds good. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Counselor Whitfield. Did that conclude your remarks? Yes, okay.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Understood. Counselor Davila, followed by Counselor Walsh.
President, good evening, Gladys. Good to see you again. Some quick questions. This meeting breakdown that I see here, subcommittee meetings, is that fiscal year 23 up to date?
It's as of when the budget narrative was created. So I can tell you that it has increased exponentially because the meetings have increased.
Right, that's what, okay. Because I don't see the Elders Affair Department, which I'm the chair of now, here, just to reflect that, because I know meetings have occurred on the Elders Affair Department. But Gladys, question regarding the expenditure of the tech equipment that we have, which Focus Springfield done a fantastic job of putting us together, and even this TV that we have here. Is that included as an expense in the budget, or does that come from somewhere else if we need a upkeep or if we need to replace something technologically wise? Is that reflected here, or would that come out of somewhere else?
It is, it's not reflected here. I believe it probably through IT.
From IT?
I would believe so.
Okay.
It's primarily, Counselor Davila, dealt with through the combination of the Facilities and Building Management Department,
Facilities
and
Management.
then the memorandum between the city and Focus Springfield.
Oh, understood.
So it hasn't fallen under specifically our department financially.
I understand. Okay, thank you. And my last question, Gladys, 250 phone calls a week to the city council. I'm very happy to see that people actually calling us and engaging. So I'm just wanted to say that I was happy to see that. Those are my questions. Good job, Gladys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Counselor Davila. Counselor Walsh.
Mr. President, and yes, Gladys, it's nice to see you on that side of the podium. I have a question. When Superintendent Warwick was talking about internships, what about internships for the city council? Do you get requests for that?
Actually, Council President Letterman has spoken to me about including 2 internships, one being a high school student and one being a college student, to work with the city council.
I know we've had them in the past. I think that would be very helpful, and I'm sure there has to be students that are interested in government.
Yes. And so we do plan on it for this coming fiscal year.
Okay, and would that be for individual counselors or just the council as a whole?
For the council as a whole, so 2 students, but to serve the whole council or council staff.
Okay. Well, one of the areas that I think is lacking for the city council, and I think we've had the discussion before, it might have even been you, Council President Letterman, that talked about a Facebook page for the city council. It seems to me there should be more media presence for what on the internet or on the city website for what the city council does for their meetings, for their events. Like, look at some of the wonderful people that we have for the proclamations. There's just an awful lot out there, a lot of information that I don't think that gets out. But you would certainly need an individual who's computer literate to do that. Is there any money in the budget for a person to be assigned to the city council to keep track of all that?
Councilor Letterman also rolled out an initiative this year where Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram are being used in order to promote the work of the city council. It's brand new as far as the information that we're putting out there. I don't want to say brand new, but it's, 6 months or so in. And one of the council staff, the newest council staff, has actually taken ownership of that project, and he works on it weekly. He puts out the dates and times of meetings such as this, where people can see it online. If you have any suggestions, I would say just email the city council staff, and then they can vet it to be
I
posted.
think it'd be more event-driven and more personal, like, I keep talking about that great group of girls that we had last week, the Springfield Youth Cheerleaders. I think it should be more of that kind of a page, not just the meetings, but the individuals that are honored, the results of some of these meetings, where you're going to be in the community. I don't think there's enough of that.
I agree. I mean, that's something that he can work on. As I said, if you have any suggested events, I would say contact the office, and we can make sure that it is appropriate to go up on the Facebook page or on the other social media pages, and we will post it.
Well, and is everybody on the city council aware that that's something that could be done? Because that's news to me, that you're doing this.
So, Councillor Walsh, in my inaugural speech at the beginning of the year, I announced that we would be reactivating the City Council's Facebook and Twitter pages. I then proceeded to draft a social media policy that was in line with a previous resolution issued by the City Council that highlighted what the majority of the council was comfortable with being posted by staff without direct orders from the City Council. And that resolution actually had been passed by the City Council twice over the course of about 4 years. I think originally it was passed even prior to, even prior to my joining, and then when I had joined, we passed another one. And so the reason that the page currently shares primarily informational material is I know that previously there was discussion amongst the council that we wanted to ensure the page remained entirely neutral. In other words, that it didn't necessarily promote any individual members of the council and their actions, but instead promoted only the authority and intention of the entire council. So that's what I've implemented, is in line with what the resolutions have previously stated. But certainly, as I've always mentioned, the council president is simply a steward. So whatever the will of the body is in terms of what they would like to see posted, we can always revisit at the appropriate time. But currently, it shares meetings, recordings of meetings, and meeting announcements.
Well, I think it should also include special interest. As you know, many of our proclamations are wonderful and things going on. Is there a committee that would deal with that?
There's currently no committee.
Okay, well, obviously it's to be continued. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Walsh. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to just go back and retouch real quick about the 500, where my colleague, Councilor Perez, and even me, myself, I wanted to go to the Bay Area and have a Spanish teacher teach me Spanish, but also let the community come and learn it. Would that be something we could use the funding? So say if Councilor Perez wanted to go to her neighborhood council and brush up on her English and have other people there taking the actual English classes, is that something we could do to use the funding for?
I honestly think that's a creative use of the money, and it's something that we can discuss and make sure that it is appropriate use of the funds and that it is approved by the city.
Okay, because I'm just, because I'm curious, because I do know there's, there are individuals who do want to, in the different neighborhood councils who said they wanted to learn Spanish, and I was going to pay for it, but I mean, I would rather use some of the city money. And then I also was curious as far as just the committee that I'm a part of. I wanted to see, is it possible where we can engage a little bit more with the other schools as far as the actual kid elections? like we're kind of distanced from it. I know some schools actually do it. I would want my colleagues to kind of like be a part of it, where we go, maybe different colleagues would go into different schools, whatever. But just to engage some of the kids when it came to kids election. Is there anything we can do with that at all?
That would fall under the elections budget, but yes, that's something that we have discussed, is how and in what capacity we can reintroduce the kids voting that you're referencing. We've done it, here and there based on the available funding that we've had, but if it's something that you'd be interesting, I'd really love meeting with you. I know that Principal Bukowski is also interested in trying to revive that, and it's something we'd have to get buy-in from the school department, obviously.
Yeah, and I'm sure my colleagues, it'd be fun, like to have some of the elections and like get them excited about elections and understanding elections. I believe it'll help even with their parents and it'll help with voter turnout. But that's all I have, and I always thank you for the great job you do. I definitely commend you for all the great work. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Brown. Are there any further questions for the clerk relative to the office of the City Council? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, would you like to move on to the office of the City Clerk?
The office of the city clerk is also level funded. We have a decrease, you'll notice, and the majority of the decrease is in the personnel due to the Public Records Division being moved from the city clerk's office, and it's actually in law department now. I think that's the only substantive change that I see here. The only other thing is that we have a small increase in advertising and office supplies. As we're still operating virtually, the advertising costs for the special permits and the zoning is longer. The ads physically are longer, so there's an increased cost to those.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Are there any questions for the clerk relative to the City Clerk's office and their budget? Seeing none. Councilor Kern?
On the front lines of your staffers in regards to other cities such as Worcester or perhaps Lowell, Lawrence, in terms of salary?
In terms of salary, our entry-level positions are pretty competitive. I do have a smaller staff than some of those bigger cities, just in terms of the size. We are a 2-hospital, so we're called a birthing community, and so I could use another staff or two. Right now, we have 7 that are working out in the front line, so to speak, and I'm sure the staff would appreciate an increase based on the work they're doing.
I'm sorry. What is an entry-level salary range, and what is the salary range in the clerk's office?
For the actual vital records clerk, it's $51,000 a year.
And that's comparable to Worcester?
No, it's less.
What would Worcester be?
I don't know. I know we did a salary study probably about 2 years ago at this point, but it is less.
I bring it up just simply to state that, obviously we all appreciate the work the city clerk's office has been doing. During COVID-19, the city clerk's office was on the front lines greeting the general public, and they greet the general public every day, daily. Unlike many of us who can work remotely, they really are the ambassadors to the city. And simply to make note of the amount of work they do, I do believe they are non-union, that perhaps TJ Plant, and I know we have Ms. Hackett here today, perhaps look at any possibilities within the budget to give those entry-level positions and frontline workers a second look to make it competitive with Worcester. I do know that we have some talented staffers who left to some of the smaller towns around the area, and salary is a concern. But again, we do appreciate the work the city clerk's office does on a daily basis. It's a lot of it's repetitive and a lot of it's dealing with the general public. But I do think on the front lines that they do need a second look and perhaps a boost in salary. And certainly with the city clerk before us every Monday night, I know you're taking up 2 roles. Perhaps we could also look at examining the city clerk's salary as well, and giving her a boost comparable to the responsibilities that she has running 2 separate departments. And I think I speak for many of us on the council as she stays here till midnight, many Mondays and Tuesdays along with us. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Curran. Councilor Walsh.
To the city clerk, that's what I was just going to ask you, was following up with Councilor Curran said about staffing. If you have enough staff that you need, are you looking for more positions, or is there something that's not being staffed that we need to help you get staffed?
I'm currently, once this budget hopefully passes, there is one vacancy that we're looking to fill, and it's in one of those entry-level vital records clerks positions. And aside from that, I think we'll be fully staffed. And, just to take a second, when I came up to the clerk's office from working in elections, I did recognize the type of work that the ladies in the clerk's office did, but the sheer volume of people that they have to work with every single day, they really are the office that deals with the most customers and constituents in the entire city. I can honestly say that. Just working there every day, day in and day out, they see people at their best when they have a baby or are about to get married. They see our residents at their worst when they come in for a death certificate. And they really do the work of greeting and working with all those individuals without any second guessing what they do. They're very competent, and I thank Councilor Curran and you, Councilor Walsh, for noting that they should get an increase. But hopefully, in this fiscal year going forward, it's something that, with the help of human resources, we can try and see if we can come to some agreement as to what type of increase we can ask for the staff going forward. They seem to be happy. We did lose one of our staff to Longmeadow. I think that's inevitable at this point. There are so many different positions that there is no bench for in municipal services. We see a lot of very talented people internally that are leaving to smaller cities and towns for higher salaries simply because Springfield is their training ground. And so they can go to a Longmeadow, they can go to a West Springfield and really enter in at a higher level than we're able to pay them.
And as you say, Gladys, your office interacts with citizens on a daily basis, best of times and worst of times. Do you ever have any security concerns?
Honestly, one of the security, the maintenance individual sits right outside our door. He's been great. They staff the office there. And recently, the Metro Police have taken a tour. So they walk through the building and they stand outside of our office quite frequently. Our office the door is locked, and we have our glass. Even before COVID, we have the glass partitions in our office. So it's pretty safe.
Okay, good to hear. Yes, and we'd be happy to help you with those projects.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Walsh. Are there any further questions for the clerk relative to the specific office of the city clerk? Seeing none, without objection, Madam Clerk will move to the Board of Elections.
The Board of Elections budget has seen an increase of 0.8%. It's pretty standard. The budget does change from year to year based on whether it's a municipal election year or a state/federal election year. This coming fiscal year, we have 3 elections that we've budgeted for, one being the presidential primary in March. So you'll see an increase for that. And there's also an increase in our printing costs because we do print our own ballots for this upcoming September and November elections that we have.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Are there any questions for the clerk relative to the budget for the Board of Elections? Councilor Davila.
Thank you, Mr. President. Gladys, just a quick question as I look here at the budget. Refresh my memory. Where are we with the voter notification?
Can you repeat that?
Sure. Could you refresh my memory and tell me where we are with voter notification? I know that this wise body about maybe 2 years ago passed, or last year passed the voter notification.
Yes. So
has that been fully funded?
The ordinance on notification?
Correct.
So we do a notification prior to the elections. Part of that is through a robocall or using the Connect CTY, where they're called before the election, notifying them that there is an election upcoming. And then as part of the Votes Act, something that we do have to do is mail out a vote by mail application. And in that application process, we are sending it to anyone who either changes their address, also newly registers to vote, or updates their voter registration status in any way. They get something mailed to them directly. That does include also the dates of the election. We also have, with our census, the dates of the elections are included in that. It's kind of everywhere that we can. Part of the ordinance is also putting out the signage. So prior to the election,
Right.
the signage that says, vote is also put out there. So we've been pretty creative in the ways that we've tried to allow voters to know when the elections are and that there are other ways to vote, for example, the vote by mail.
Right. The reason that I'm thoughtful, Gladys, is because maybe my coffee hasn't kicked in yet, but I don't recall myself, and I vote in every election. I've definitely seen the signs that you're talking about, and I know we talked about it offline before, but I'm having a hard time remembering me getting anything via text.
It
or
wouldn't be a
home-
text.
Or which system you said you use?
So it'd be a voice
Voicemail.
call.
Yeah,
so an
so I'm
actual
having a
call.
hard time remembering that. I'm not saying that it hasn't been done, but very well. So that's going to be used for this election as well and going forward. And my question is that it's reflected here, and it seems to me that the answer is yes.
Yes.
Okay. Gladys, again, good job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Davila. Councilor Kern?
Mr. President, I did have a comment, but in regard to the city council budget, is it possible to make a comment addressing that?
That would be appropriate, as long as the clerk is all right with it, yeah.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I just wanted to make a comment, and again to Ms. Hackett or perhaps TJ Plant, just a request to explore further the possibility of getting funds in the budget for the city council for the State House News Service. That's the service that tracks the budget at the state level. That would be terribly helpful for all of our committees here in the city council, particularly finance, as you track the finance bills, or perhaps maintenance and development as you track the DPW bond bills. So it will allow city councilors to make requests within their various wards or across the city to our legislative delegation. And without having the State House News Service directly, it's very difficult to track what they're doing down in Boston, and it kind of makes the job of a city councilor that much more difficult. State House News Service is about $2,000, so if it's not feasible to get it directly for every councilor, just perhaps for the office, so the various committees could have access to it. I know the administration does have access to it. TJ Plan has it in his budget, but perhaps the city council could have it in their budget, so the residents that we represent would have a better idea of what's going on at the state level, and we would have a better idea of what to request and when to request from our state delegation, what's going through the State House. So just that commentary. It's about $2,000. If the city council could get that in their budget, our budget, I think that would be terrific.
Thank you, Councilor Kern. Councilor Davila?
Thank you, Mr. President. Just Gladys, I'm just going to piggyback of Councilor Curran, and second his thought, just to give some context. Not only is he going to help us to be more efficient, but as I'm sure you recall last year, we almost had a situation in which we had an opening in Ward 5, and we almost moved forward to appoint somebody when we had already passed a home rule petition to which I authored myself to have an election on that ward, and it's a living proof that it worked. And so my point is that we almost violated the ordinance in and of itself because we didn't know that the governor had already signed it. And if it wasn't because of the work of a lot of people, a lot of phone calls, we would have, in essence, violated our own ordinance. So I do want to strongly suggest and second Councilor Curran's request, suggestion. It will be money well spent, and it will seem to me that it's just peanuts compared to this budget. And so just to add to that comment, and I would really appreciate it if you could really look into that and make it happen. Thank you, Gladys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Davila. Are there any further questions for the city clerk relative to the budget for the office of the Board of Elections? Seeing none, just a follow-up on my part relative to Councilor Davila's question on the election notification ordinance, which was passed back in 2019. The primary requirements of the election notification ordinance is the signage and the municipal mailing 30 days prior to a municipal election that details the offices that are placed on the ballot for that election, as well as the polling location for the individuals at the household receiving the notification. Is that budgeted for in the upcoming year for the preliminary and the general election?
The postcard mailing? Yes.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you. Any further questions for the office of the city clerk relative to the Board of the Elections? Seeing none. Without objection, our next department technically is finance, but since the clerk is here and number 8 is 311, I think we should take 311 first. And who will be presenting the 311 budget, Madam Clerk? Roy is here? Okay. Mr. Anderson, the floor is yours for 311. Madam Clerk, I don't see Roy's name here. I do see a phone number, but I can't confirm who that is. Okay. Mr. Anderson, are you present with us now? Does not appear that he is. Certainly. Yep, we can do finance first. We still have time. So while the clerk reaches out to Mr. Anderson, we'll go to number 7, the finance office, and the deputy CAFO is with us. Ms. Hackett.
Thank you, Mr. President. So the Office of Admin and Finance's budget is a level service budget. We do have an increase of about 4% overall. We did add 2 FTEs for FY24. We reinstated the budget, the grants director, and also we did hire another compliance assistant for the Department of Technical Assistance and Compliance.
Excellent. Thank you, Ms. Hackett. Are there any questions relative to the finance department budget? Seeing none? Okay, thank you, Ms. Hackett. We'll go back to 311. It looks like Mr. Anderson is the phone number. He's just having some trouble unmuting. So, Mr. Anderson, the floor is yours, and you can unmute. What is the phone command to unmute? Focus? Do we know?
I'm sorry, Mr. President.
Can you hear me?
I think we've got him. We've got him.
Oh, yeah, this is Roy Goodman. You'll say Mr. Anderson, but this is Roy Goodman from 311.
Say again?
This is Roy Goodman from 311.
Oh, Roy, there you are. You're on. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Our budget for fiscal year 24 is level funded. The biggest thing for us is our salary and wages. Once again, for this year, everything else is pretty straightforward for our budget. Our biggest other thing is a software program that we use to deal with other departments as well as the community. But other than that, our budget is pretty straightforward.
Mr. Goodman, forgive me. I was using the wrong last name for you, and it was simply I was looking at a different paper here, so I do apologize, Mr. Goodman. We did have a little trouble hearing your presentation. I don't know if it was just me, but I'm looking at other counselors as well. If you could, they're going to adjust your levels here a little bit in the chamber, Mr. Goodman, and we're going to ask that you share your presentation one more time.
Yes. Can you hear me clearly now?
Yes, it's better now. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Our budget is level funded. The biggest thing for us is our salary and wages. And then we also have our software program that we use to deal with our constituents in other departments on a daily basis. That our software program we've been using for the past 6 years, or maybe longer than that, and the funding for that has always stayed the same. And they confirmed with us for at least the next 2 or 3 years, it will not increase. It will be the same as well, $48,000 a year. But other than that, we're level funded, kind of straightforward for what our budget is.
Thank you, Mr. Goodman. Are there any questions relative to the 311 budget? We'll go to Councilor Allen and then Councilor Walsh.
Thanks, Mr. President. Thanks, Roy, for explaining your budget here. I just have one question. I think you said it was level funded, and I'm reading it on page 141, and it says there's an increase of 1 FTE. So do those things go together? Is it level funded if there's an increase, or could you just explain that?
Yeah, so you said it was 1 FTE? Is that what you indicated?
That's what it says in the budget book, yeah. This is an increase.
So there are, right now we have 9 full-time employees. We've been allocated for 11, but that's been for the past year. We're just waiting to fill those positions. We have 2 vacant positions that we're waiting to fill. We have one that's closing tomorrow that's been posted for the past 2 weeks. And then we have a senior position that we had posted for a while, was not able to fill. But we're hoping to fill that position soon as well.
So,
and the only thing that we have is the increase in cost of living. So those will go up, for our employees as well.
So are you trying to add a position in this budget?
No, all the positions have already been, like I said, we just have the vacancies, but they've been added from prior year.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Allen. Councilor Walsh.
President, and thank you, Mr. Goodman. That was my question. I was wondering what how many full-time employees you had, and if you had enough, and what the status was for staffing.
Right. So like I said, right now we have 9 full-time employees. We have 2 vacancies that we're looking to fill. One's currently posted, and I think the closing is another day or 2. And then we'll be filling that position. And then we have a senior position that we're going to be looking to fill as well.
All right. Well, thank you very much for that information.
Councilor Davila.
President Reid, good evening, my good sir. I'm having a little bit of a hard time with the audio here. Just want to make sure that I heard you correctly. So that 1 FTE position, you're basically saying that you're recouping that position from last year?
Correct. We've had these positions open for 11 full-time employees for 2 years now.
Okay, so it's not a net gain. So you're staying this. Okay, got you. Now, did you say you have 2 openings right now, or just 1?
We have 2 openings. We have 1 senior position that's open, and then 1 regular call center representative that's open.
Okay. Now, Roy, could you give me the 30-second overview as in regards to 311 and the language services that we have? Somebody who calls into 311 that speaks many of the languages of a beloved city, how do you, I know you have several staff that speak Spanish, but I'm thinking of the many other languages throughout the city, whether it be Vietnamese, Nepalese, Somalian. What do we do for those people? Can you give me that 30-second overview?
Yeah, well, really what we have mostly is just English and Spanish. We don't really get any calls from any other languages that we cannot handle. Sometimes people call in, they may have an interpreter. If they speak a different language outside of English or Spanish, they may have their own interpreter already available to assist us. But the city does have a language line that we need to use, that we can use it, where we just call into the service line, use a code, and then we can get whatever language that we need to accommodate the constituent who may call in. So most times, if it's not English or Spanish, whoever may call in, they may already have an interpreter available.
And that will pretty much cover the vast majority of the population that we have in the city? You feel comfortable that most people will be most likely helped?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
No, I'm just saying that you feel that most people will most likely be helped with the system you have right now that are non-English speakers.
Yes, we're looking to fill, like I said, we're down one Spanish speaker. We just have one leave to go to a different department, so we currently have two.
Right.
So by next opening that we have, hopefully it could be another Spanish speaker that will help out the two that we currently have.
Right. And again, right, as I mentioned, I'm thinking of many other languages, not only Spanish, but throughout the city. We have a lot of second language speakers here in the city. And so I just want to make sure that everybody has the ability to contact their government, as we are their government. But Roy, again, I just want to, Mr. President, if you allow me, I want to give Roy kudos. I was just reading here that in fiscal year 23, they answered 83,537 calls and counting. Since 2009, 311 has answered 2,110,000 calls. Fantastic job. My compliments to you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilor Davila. Councilor Walsh?
I already asked my question. I'm all
Sorry,
set.
Councilor Walsh. Your hand remained up, so I wasn't sure if you had a new question.
Well, thank you. I'm all set.
No problem. Councilor Hurst.
Yeah, I too want to echo the sentiments of my colleague, Councilor Davila. Roy, you continue to do an excellent job in 311, and your entire staff does so as well. I'm probably one of those individuals that consumes a lot of the call time for your employees, as I utilize 311 quite often. And there have been times in which even you yourself have picked up the phone. And so the fact that, you're all in your department and you're willing to lead by example and field some of those calls just really shows the work that you're putting in on a daily basis. And it's probably why your department is so successful. Couple questions, and I might have missed them. So if I missed them and these are repeats, I apologize. The salaries, you said there was an increase in salaries and wages. Did I hear you say that?
Right, so there'll be an increase for the cost of living for each employee and also for myself as well.
Cost of living. So I know we went back and forth last year in terms of receiving, additional pay for the work that you are doing to be comparable to other cities and towns in the Commonwealth. Are we there yet? Maybe as it relates to Boston or Worcester or even maybe some of the other major cities outside of Connecticut? And are we there for your employees as well? Have we done that pay study in your department?
I know Gladys did a pay study, so she may be able to give you a better answer on that. As far as the salaries, I haven't done one for my employees totally, but for myself, Gladys did one as well last year, I believe it was. We're not quite there with some of the other towns, but hopefully we'll be getting there sooner than later. I did get a 2% increase for cost of living and did an additional 3% increase. So it was a total of 5 I'll be getting for new fiscal year 24.
Okay. Okay, so a total of 5%. Okay, all right. We definitely want to. I just think the work that you all are doing, we need to figure out how we can compensate you for your work, and then how we can also retain those individuals who are in your department. And so, if we're not paying at a level that other cities and towns of similar size are paying, then we ought to reassess that. And I guess that's more of a statement for you, Gladys. It just seems like, these are tough times, and making sure that we're able to retain employees, considering we have 149 vacancies and, we're looking for an additional position or two to be filled in 311. I think it's critical for us to really assess what it is that we're giving to our employees, especially in these critical departments and those that are going above and beyond. So my statement, and, Roy, kudos to you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Hurst. Councilor Whitfield.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just echoing what both counselors just said, in addition to what Councilor Curran said earlier about the city's clerk's office, but I think the right thing to do is to do a study like we've done for city council, just so that it's recorded and there's proof. We know that you all work very hard and deserve to be paid equitably and fairly. I know that 311 are essential employees, so when the city shuts down and we can stay home and relax, they still have to go to work. And so with that said, I wanted to know if there's any work from home options. It's a call center. We should be able to do that. That cuts overhead, and maybe some of those funds could be used for, to increase salaries. So is that a discussion that's been had at all?
Yeah, so I've been dealing with IT, so we're supposed to get a new phone system. So that might be an option for us down the road as far as working from home on during those times when there's a major snowstorm. So 301, we do have to come in on those days where other departments may be off. We still have to come into the office. So we're speaking with IT. They're working on a new phone system for us. And that might be an option for us in those particular days where we may just be able to stay at home and answer the calls from home.
And I don't think it just should be for those particular days, Roy, just to be quite honest. This is a new technology age. Phone systems probably should have been updated. But other things seem to be the priority. Folks should be able to work from home or have some days that they work from home. Some flexible scheduling should be going on. We're in a new century. There's a lot of technology and a lot of things out here. There's no reason that employees have to travel. It cuts overhead. It increased productivity. And there's just other factors out there that the benefit of working from home. It doesn't have to be every day, but there should be some flexibility there. That's just a comment that I want to make. So when you guys decide to look at the work from home option, I think that should be across the board for the city. If there's departments that can work from home some days, they should be able to do so. I think it's a micromanaging, supremacist way to think that folks are unproductive when they're not in the office, because statistics show the quite opposite. So I just wanted to throw that out there, and hopefully you guys will do a study on the pay equity and also do a study on the work from home option, even if it's a few days a week. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Whitfield. Are there any further questions for Mr. Goodman relative to the 311 Center? Seeing none. Mr. Goodman, thank you. And again, my apologies for misstating your last name earlier, but certainly you have my gratitude as well. I try to utilize the app sometimes to bring down the call volume. So, and the app, folks are very responsive in your department to the app reports as well. So thank you again.
All right, thank you, sir.
All right, so seeing no further questions for 311, our next department is capital asset construction, but I know that Councilor Whitfield had actually a question for the finance office and was cut off. So I do want to allow Councilor Whitfield to ask the question for finance. Ms. Hackett, if you could come back for a moment. Councilor Whitfield.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Hi, Counselor.
Hi, Lindsay. How are you?
Good.
So my question is, I see that there's a decrease in the budget, and it said because of the ARPA administration. So did that person transfer to another department? What?
Which budget?
Finance?
Finance budget, there's a decrease.
Unless I'm looking at the wrong budget. Hold on. Go back.
Oh, there was offsets, yes, of salary to ARPA, the grant. Is that what you were looking at?
So there was offsets to the grant?
If that's what you were looking at on the last page of the narrative in the budget?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so we build up our entire roster, and we do this for every department, and then when we know that there's salaries that can be offset to specific grants, we make a cut to the overall budget in that department.
Oh, so it was offset, okay. And then I know quite often in these meetings, we never talk about revenue. However, at this time, I'm going to bring up revenue and property taxes. It looks like we are anticipating increase in property tax by $17 million. Did we look at every opportunity that we could to not have to do that on property taxes? Because it would be the 9th year in a row that property taxes have increased.
So the revenue side of the budget, as of right now, includes no offsets, and that's not because we haven't looked at any options, it's just because we haven't brought forth any options yet. But we do have to build up the revenue budget without any offsets to the levy, and then offsets are taken on top of that, but they're not included in the budget book.
So I did see a 3.5 million decrease. What's that?
So the 3.5 million, that was a reduction to the overlay. I would have to look to see exactly what you're talking about. There was revenue increase, and there was an increase to new growth and a reduction to the overlay, which if it is what you're looking at, it would be a $3.5 million total on the revenue side.
Right, a decrease, right?
It decreased to the gap. So, yeah.
Yes, decrease to the gap, yeah, you're right. So I know that we approve expenditures, but I think it's hard to approve expenditures when we don't know what's happening with revenue. And I think it would be beneficial if we knew what reductions to the property tax, the 17 million we're anticipating or we're looking at. This is gonna be a tough budget for me to approve just because of that. And I know what the rest of the counselors are gonna do, but just because of that, that would be tough, even though we don't necessarily approve revenue. We approve the expenditures because a lot of times we say that we're gonna work to decrease these things, and then the time comes and it's tax rate setting and it's this and that doesn't seem to be the case, and it doesn't happen. And so if you can come up with any ideas of what your conversations are around reducing that, Lindsay, I think that would be helpful for me if we can get some information on that, because right now, a $17 million increase to property tax does not feel good, and to have to explain it to the community does not feel good either. So those were the couple of questions that I have for you, and I appreciate you coming back to the podium.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Whitfield. Thank you, Ms. Hackett. We'll now move to capital asset construction. Mr. Garvey.
Good evening, Council President and councilors. We have 5 FTEs, and then we have other than personal services, which is about 10% of our budget. That 10% represents advertising and a lot of archiving. We have tremendous amounts of paper that we archive on servers.
Thank you, Mr. Garvey. Does that conclude your remarks?
Yes.
Are there any questions for Mr. Garvey on capital asset construction budget? Mr. Allen.
Pete, could you just define what you mean by archives, or what are you archiving?
All our drawings from this chamber, from the construction of this building, all the way up to what we currently do. So everything's online, so we can access it easily in case we're doing renovations to any buildings within the city.
So any of your drawings, like for Duggan or for
Any drawing,
all archive, does that grow every year, the amount of archive?
yes.
Okay, thanks.
Each drawing, like, for instance, the new DeBerry School's about 400 pages of drawings and probably around 1,000 pages of specifications.
Councilor Walsh.
Thank you, Peter, for coming in. How many employees do you have?
5.
5. And do you need more than that, or is that adequate for what you do?
No, we've been running pretty streamlined for the last 9 years that I've been here, so we're pretty busy, but we get the job done.
Okay, and it's the project, it's the construction project. Is that basically capital assets what your main focus is?
Construction projects over about $250,000 is the city ordinance.
Oh, okay, so anything under 250,000 your department does not do?
No.
And where does that usually get done?
Could get done through parks, could get done through facilities. We usually help out anybody that needs help with any project, any construction project, but it's usually a smaller scale, so.
Okay, and just for general information, what are the big projects you worked on this year? Was it the schools?
Right now, we're just finishing up the DeBerry School, DeBerry Swan School. It's a 155,000 square foot building. It's a $90 million project that's going to come online in August. And then we got to demo the old school for the parking lot. We have Duggan athletic fields. It's about $16 million. Central athletic fields is $7 million. We have a lot of upgrades to the city schools. We have 3 window projects going this summer. We have 2 boiler projects going next summer. So we work closely with the MSBA and Facilities Department to look at what projects need to be put in front of the MSBA so we can get funding for them.
Okay, well, sounds like you've got a full schedule.
Busy's good.
Yeah. Thank you for the information.
Thank you, Councilor Walsh. Councilor Whitfield.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to just say you guys are doing an amazing job on the DeBerry Swan School. I ride by there often. It's a beautiful building with beautiful playgrounds. You guys are doing great with the schedule, and I just wanted to give you kudos there. And then on the Duggan field, I walk over there because my mom lives over there, and I walk over there a lot. And we usually cut through the field, but the big fence is up now, but it also looks amazing. And so I really don't have any questions, Pete, but I just wanted to give you your flowers right now. So great job, great property management that you do over there. And I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a great staff as well.
Thank you, Councilor Whitfield. Councilor Davila, followed by Councilor Hurst.
Similarly, as I look at this, at the budget, I look at the staff, I look at your budget and the volume of work you guys put out. It's nothing short of a miracle, my good sir, the amount of work you guys do. And it's just a miracle. That's, so my compliments to you. But Peter, can you give me the 30-second overview of what's the Forest Park Master Plan?
Forest Park Master Plan is, right now we have Walker Stadium lined up.
I'm sorry.
Walker Stadium, the
Walker
redo
Stadium,
Walker
yeah.
Stadium. We are out right now for a designer to help us with that, to get that on the rolls and get that construction, as well as the Monkey House building, getting that up and running. We just moving forestry over into the new forestry building. So we're going to be redoing that. And hopefully we have a greenhouse, kind of like what they have at Smith College, to bring more people into Forest Park.
Very well. Thank you, Peter.
You're
and again, my compliments to you and your entire staff. Thank you, Mr. President.
Councilor Hurst.
Thank you, Mr. President. Peter, why did I hear that the Duggan project was being held up for some reason? Is that just a rumor, or is there any sort of truth to that?
There is truth to that. There was a rebid. We didn't have any bidders bid the first time we went out to bid. So we repackaged it, went out to bid, and we had 7 bidders. And we're going through the bids right now, actually.
So how long does that delay the project? And what was the reason for not having bids? What is your thought behind that?
3 to 4 weeks setback, but we'll try to make that up as best we can. There's just a lot of work out there, and there's not the contractors to do anything. There's not a lot of contractors to do work under a $10 million. Once you hit the $10 million mark, you get more people coming from different places that will bid on it. But we got on the phones. We were on the phones the first time, and we had a lot of bidders, but they backed out at the last minute. So it's just the market we're in. There's not a lot of contractors.
So what changed?
We repackaged it. We gave them a little more time to get done. Like I said, we got on the phones and we really reached out to a lot of people. So we had seven bidders. Aggressive schedule when we first went out. We relaxed the schedule a little bit to make sure we can, number one, procure the material that's required, and number two, get it done on the time we say we're going to get it done.
Got it. Okay. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Hurst. Are there any further questions for Mr. Garvey? Seeing none? Thank you, Mr. Garvey.
Thank you.
We'll move to employee benefits.
Hello.
Hello.
My name is Diana Miltowski, just in case you don't know, I am the insurance director. Just wanted to let you know that we do have a level, balanced budget for this year. Not a lot of changes. It's pretty standard stuff for us. Just we brought in a lot of new things, but it's not costing any money for the city except the employees paying for it. So the city will not be paying for that parts. The things that we brought in, the extra dental and stuff like that.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions relative to the employee benefits departmental budget? Councillor Fenton.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you for being here tonight to make that presentation. I just want to point out, I believe the finance department's in the crowd, that Springfield as a municipality has one of the state's most generous benefit programs with a 75% payment for all of its health insurance benefits, irrespective of the size of the plan and the number of family members on the plan. That's correct, right?
That is correct.
Yeah, and I have long, on the one hand, admired that we're able to do this, and on the other hand, hoped that we could explore alternatives to save expense here by potentially making that match 50% for some of the more expensive plans that really drive up city costs. So I want to thank the director for being here and making that presentation, and for the finance team in the crowd. I just, the risk of being a broken record on this, I'd like to continue to explore that possibility for future years, especially as we continue to look at some of the financial realities that we'll have to come to terms with other benefit packages that we provide, most notably the pension system. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fenton. Councillor Davila.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening. I believe you say your name is Diane?
Diana, yes.
Nice to meet you, Diane.
Nice to meet you.
Quick question, just to make sure that I understand this. It says here that the benefits that we pay now is $33.5 million total, roughly?
Probably, that sounds about right.
Okay. And so the city's currently paying out $528,000 in workers' comp?
Oh, I don't get involved with workers' comp.
I'm sorry?
That would be Bill Mahoney.
If Mr. President, if Mr. Mahoney can answer that question?
Sure. Attorney Mahoney.
Councilor, I'm sorry, what's your question?
Hi, Bill. Good evening to you. Yeah, I'm looking at the budget, page 185, on their budget highlights. It says workers' comp, $528,000. Is that what the city is paying out or projected to pay out in workers' comp?
There's two numbers for workers' comp. There's the indemnity number, which is the amount when someone is actually receiving a weekly paycheck through workers' comp. And then there are the medicals. So the 520 would probably be the indemnity payment, and that would have gone up about 1 or 2% this year. The medicals went up 2.3%, which was tracked on medical inflation rates nationwide. So that's what we were doing with workers' comp.
So, Bill, would you happen to know roughly then how much are we actually paying out in workers' comp? If you have a hard number for me?
If you can bear with me, let me just get the number here.
Sure. Well, Bill, when you looked at that question, let me ask Diane this question, if she's able to answer it. Are we keeping track as to the type of injuries that is causing this workers' comp, and how are we assessing to prevent further injuries?
For workers' comp, yeah, we don't handle that part in the benefits. All we handle is the actual benefits.
Just the so okay, so it will be more okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, we get the letters and we send them down to Bill.
Gotcha. No, I understand. Sure. Bill, feel free to either tell me offline that number. You don't have to fumble right now to get it.
I'll get that number for you.
Yeah, that's okay. I'll just, yeah, that's fine. And the reason I bring it up, Bill, is because, and Diane, is because, workers' comp, it's one of those things that we always have to continue to monitor because it could be a real burden, financial burden. So I'm just kind of interested to see what are we doing to educate and to prevent further injuries. Because initially, $500,000, it's, you can make an argument, it's a lot of money, it's not a lot of money.
Yeah.
Come see, come sell, tomato. But trying to be cognizant. Thank you, Diane. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Davila. Are there any further questions for Ms. Miltowski? Seeing no further questions for Ms. Miltowski. Ms. Miltowski, thank you so much for your presentation and for your extraordinarily important work, though it is often behind the scenes critical to the infrastructure of the city of Springfield. Can I see the list? Our next department that we will be reviewing is Human Resources and Labor Relations. Attorney Mahoney.
Good evening, councilors. Thank you for your time tonight. HR Labor Relations, our responsibilities include recruitment, applicant management, background checks, Corey checks, I-9s, onboarding of all of our personnel, file maintenance, leave management, civil service administration, and we manage unemployment, workers' comp, employee assistance programs for both cities and schools. We manage the DOT drug testing, including pre-employment, random, post-accident, and return-to-duty testing, and we provide training for city departments. This can be Excel training, it could be workers' comp management training, how to handle a grievance, et cetera. We conduct the labor relations for the city. We have 12 unions. I'm happy to report that 10 of them are under contract through June 30th of 2024 or later. We are in interest arbitration with one union, and we are actively negotiating with the 12th union. We conduct grievance administration, represent the city in arbitration, administrative hearings, civil service, MCAD, EEOC, the JLMC, where I was today, DLR, and in state and federal court. In FY24, we'll continue to have 9 employees. 8.5 are FTEs, 1 employee is half-time. We have an increase in our advertising budget from $1,500 to $3,500. Some of the councilors have talked about recruitment tonight, and we'll be using that money, of course, for that purpose. Small increases in our professional services due to expected increases from some of our vendors, including one of our main recruitment tools, which is NeoGov, and I report on this every year. For this year, we had 198 postings in NeoGov. We had 263,267 hits on our postings, and we received 3,854 applications. Following up on the recruiting piece, all employers are struggling right now. When you drive around the city or drive around the state, everyone is seeing the signs now hiring, come in and apply. You're seeing it if you're watching the morning news at 6 a.m. You'll see they're running the banners at the bottom of the screen looking to hire for certain positions. Employers are getting very creative, and I'm happy to report that we are also getting very creative. We've done a few things. We started off with walk-in Wednesdays back in the fall, And basically, we promoted this as a way of just come on in, we'll talk to you right on the spot, let's see what you're interested in, we'll tell you what we have open, we'll talk about the hiring process, and that was pretty successful. We've also done, we came up with HR on the road, and we are actually getting out of the office. We were at the pancake breakfast, we had a table. We were up at the Eastfield Mall, we had a storefront. We just said we wanted a table. They said, take a storefront. We said, we'll take one. And we were just trying to meet with the employees up there that are, of course, are going to be transitioning to something different. We wanted to let them know that we had some opportunities. We'll be down at the Pride Parade, which is coming up. We have a table for that as well. We've partnered with the high schools and the colleges. We've been at 2 of the high schools quite frequently trying to recruit for our summer positions and talk up our internship programs that we run. So we're getting out there, we're doing it, we're taking the steps that we need to take in order to keep driving our recruitment process. I think that's a pretty good summary of what we've been up to, and if you have any questions about the budget, happy to field them.
Thank you, Attorney Mahoney. Councilor Davila, followed by Councilor Hurst.
Thank you, Mr. President. Bill, I just got 2 questions for you. You talked about going to arbitration. Do you have like a historical cost that it will cost the city to go to arbitration?
Well, there's a few different pieces to it. There is the cost for staff, and we have, counting myself, we have 3 lawyers. I handle interest arbitration, which is a very specialized part of arbitration. Mm-hmm. The other 1.5 attorneys handle all of our grievance arbitration. So we have salary costs there. We also have the cost of arbitrators, and that fits into the professional services account that I have. We don't control whether or not something goes to arbitration. Mm-hmm. Arguably you could say we could because we deny grievances. And if they get denied, they might end up in arbitration. So there's an initial filing fee with the American Arbitration Association.
Who pays that?
That's about $350 for the arbitration filing fee. And then there's additional.
Who pays that?
I'm sorry?
Who pays the fee? The person that requests the arbitration?
We pay half, they pay half.
Okay.
So any of the fees with AAA, we're splitting that. But then there's also the cost of the arbitrator. The arbitrator is not an employee of AAA. Right. The arbitrator is usually independent. The one I was arguing in front of today is independent. And what they do is they'll charge anywhere from $1,500 to $2,000, maybe $2,200 a day. And we pay half of that. They pay half of that. Sometimes you have 2, 3, 4-day hearings. You may have, that's rare. Most of the time we get it done in one day. You'll also have usually a day of study that the arbitrator will do, and then you'll have a day to write the decision. So we're going to pay half of that fee. The union's going to pay the other half.
I see. Bill, I asked because I know I have heard you say in the past, which is not really surprising, that the city is going to arbitration for X, Y, or Z reason. And I know you're doing your due diligence and you are protecting the city. And I can appreciate that, but I'm going to say something that I'm sure is not news to you. I'm sure you heard it before, but at least I can tell you, for me as a counselor, when people reach out to me, is their frustration as it comes to the ability to settle a contract, I don't want to say quickly, but efficiently. And so the reason I say that is because that has real impact, and I know you're in a difficult spot, and I can appreciate that. So I'm just conveying that to you, but that could be a conversation for later, just to convey that to you. Now, question regarding, I don't know if this is a finance question or not, but moving on from that, I think we heard in the last meeting or one of the meetings that we have 140 openings throughout the city. Have you guys looked at that in terms like, when can we, and maybe Councilor Allen can chime in with more expertise on me as to, can we also, actually it's more my finance question, I guess. I'm just trying to think how we can relay that to save money on the budget, but That's okay. I will follow up with finance, Bill, but thank you. Thank you. I'm thinking outside of the box as I'm talking, Mr. President, but thank you. Thank you. Those are my questions.
Thank you, Councilor Davila. Councilor Hurst.
Thank you, Mr. President. Bill, why are you no longer negotiating the contracts for the school department? How did that end up happening?
It was funny, I finished the school department, school teachers contract. And then I think we had 6 cases right around the time that I stopped negotiating for them. And we won 5 of the 6, including a U.S. District Court jury trial. But they decided to go with outside counsel, and that's okay.
So I guess I'm even talking about negotiating the actual contracts for some of the unions. They used to do that as well, right?
Yeah, I negotiated, there's 12 unions over on the school side. I negotiated all 12 of those contracts.
Do you still do that?
I do not.
Okay, and who made the decision to go elsewhere, and do we know why?
The school committee.
That might have been a question.
The school committee made that decision.
The school committee made the decision.
Yep.
Okay. Definitely will follow up later this evening as to why. Couple other questions. Bill, you talked about advertising in terms of, recruitment efforts. And so what are we doing? Where are we advertising? Who are we advertising with?
So
have we diversified the number of publications and the type of publications that we're advertising through?
You know what we spent a lot of the advertising money on this year was handouts for the fairs that we go to attract attention to what we're doing. So we've done large banners that we have to bring people over to our tables. We have a lot of giveaways now that we've never had in the past. So whether it's mugs or other things that are handed out for, whether it's a little pad for people to write notes on, it's the same thing that a lot of the other people that we're competing with are also doing. So in order to get somebody to sit at your table, to come to your table and talk about the opportunities, we're just trying to entice them by bringing them over and putting a few things out there.
So we're not advertising in any sort of publications at all?
We do on occasion. Sometimes what we'll do is Lawyers Weekly, but all of the print is very expensive, and then what you're seeing is even on the digital, it's pretty expensive right now.
Okay, interesting. Our returning citizens, have we thought about ways in which we can incorporate our returning citizens into the hiring process?
I'm not certain. You mean return? Did you say returning citizens?
Yes, those that are that have been incarcerated and are being released.
Yeah, we have people that have been incarcerated and released, and they'll apply for us, and we, if they're qualified, we'll bring them on board.
So I'd love to get those numbers in terms of what that looks like and how many individuals that we've hired, and if we can get into that level of detail in what departments. I'd like to see the efforts that we're making because I feel like that's an untapped population that we haven't taken advantage of, that we probably can take advantage of, that we can take advantage of. Councilor Whitfield also hit on previously something that has been on my mind in terms of hybrid. I talked to an individual who worked for the city of Springfield, I won't highlight the department, but had a instance in which her son was sick. She asked, didn't have anybody to take care of her son, especially in light of COVID, for a variety of different reasons, and asked her employer whether her department head, whether she could work from home that particular day, knowing that the work that she was doing could be done from home. Her employer said no, and so as a result, she had to take the day off or take a personal day. The city lost productivity from someone who could easily have done their job from home and at the same time, be there for her sick child. And then we ultimately lost her to another agency who allowed for hybrid work. And so I guess my question, in the wake of COVID, when we have so many departments that obviously were able to make it work from a hybrid standpoint, are we looking into at all for those departments who can do it, having those individuals go back to some sort of hybrid format to not just entice people to come on board, but also to retain individuals? And similarly, have we thought about 4-day work weeks or signing bonuses, or even the way in which, doing more pay studies to make sure we're comparable to the Worcesters or the Bostons of the world? What outside efforts are we doing outside of what it is that I see on this FY23 highlights? Because, to be quite frank with you, they seem a bit antiquated, and they also seem as though we'll never be able to compete, certainly to those in the private market, but even more so to other individuals in other municipalities throughout the Commonwealth.
Yeah, I think that we are competitive. I think what we need to understand is that we are not the private sector. We are the public sector. The public pays our salaries, and quite frankly, I think the public expects us to be in our buildings and be responsive to them and not at home, working from there. Most of our jobs have to be done on site. There's no other alternative. Whether it's our police officers, our firefighters, which are our two largest groups, they're not going to be able to work from home. Our DPW, they're not going to be able to work from home. Our collector's office and our city clerk's office and our elections office, they're not going to be able to work from home. And quite frankly, if you pick and choose and say, well, I'm going to have these two people are going to work from home, it becomes a morale issue for the rest of the office, because then it's like, well, they didn't have to come in, but I had to drive in, and it was raining this morning, and I had to come to work, and so-and-so got to stay home. That is the way I think our staff is going to begin to look at it if we start picking and choosing on that. And I don't know that the public's going to respond very well to it either.
Yeah, not responding well to 149 vacancies. And they're also not receiving the services that they might have been afforded. And their taxes aren't doing anything but going up year after year after year. And so for them, they're looking at it as though, at the very least, I ought to receive some of the common services that ought to come with me just paying taxes. So I certainly understand your perspective, but there also is a competing perspective out there that makes sense to a lot of residents in the city of Springfield as well. So I would argue that we ought to be making some strides in leading in terms of reimagining our workforce, and the idea that we're kind of keeping it as we've always kept it is just because it's easy, and just because we don't want to offend some folks and not offend others. For me, that's not a good reason to start to investigate ways in which we can reimagine our workforce. And I think we have to, or else you're going to continue to see that number of positions increase month after month and year after year. So just seems to me that we ought to try something different. I'm not so sure we're there yet. But with that said, can you give me a breakdown of the number of settlements in each department that we handle every year? And I guess off the top of your head, do you know if that, do we allocate money for those potential settlements through your department, or is money allocated department by department?
Do you mean for labor relations settlements for contract negotiations?
No, so I'm thinking more like discrimination settlements, police brutality settlements. Is that department by department?
No, that would pretty much be in the law department's budget, I believe.
Okay, all right. Sounds good. And then, are there any particular areas or departments that are having high levels of turnover? And if so, how are we addressing those? And I'm specifically thinking off the top of my head about the building department, but I certainly know that we've had significant turnover in the law department as well, or maybe just not been able to fill those vacancies. How do we handle that? Are we looking at trends by department to really assess to see whether maybe our department heads might not necessarily maybe they need some training to try to prevent the turnover and retain employees?
We do. We do exit interviews, and if we see an issue, we raise the issue with the department.
Okay, just through the exit interviews. And if you see trends in a particular department, you're addressing those as well?
We bring it to the department head's attention.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. No further questions at the moment, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Hurst. Councilor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank you for the work that you do. I know that it's a difficult job keeping everything in order. I was just curious as far as, is it possible for me to obtain a list of the jobs based on maybe if you have a record or not? You can have this job, your education, because some jobs, if you don't have like a college degree and college experience, would it be possible to obtain something like that? Because I have a lot of, I come across a lot of organizations where people are there in the neighborhood council and things, and they always kind of ask, is there a way that I can get a hold of something like that?
So, Counselor, what I would suggest, if you are in that position with anyone in any of the neighborhood councils or any of your constituents, is just to direct them to our website, because it has a listing of all the job openings that we are recruiting for, and it'll have all of the requirements.
And I don't mean to cut you off. Where the actual individuals and some of them that wouldn't be something that they would be they'd have to be walked through some of that stuff like you do, like you realize like you even do Excel training for city employees that actually are employed now. So if there was something like that you can Xerox and copy it, just send me an email. There's only like 100 and something you said. It doesn't have to be a huge job description stuff, but if it's something there where I can have access to, I'd love to have it so I can just just look at it quick and say, hey, all right, well, they're hiring right here. This is the department. Just call right here.
We'll see what we can put together for you tomorrow and get it out to you.
I appreciate it. And I have one more thing. With the seniors, I know that we did something with, and I know it's kind of difficult to kind of finagle, but we have a lot of seniors in my area who they own their property, but they have issues with taxes and things. Mm-hmm. Is there a thing, I know they had something where they could work part-time or do something and it would reflect as far as aiding in their taxes or anything like that. Is there anything to help some of the seniors with like part-time employment or anything like that? Because I know a lot of seniors who still want to be active, but I know there's certain discrepancies on their employment. But is there something in place to help the seniors?
Yeah, I would suggest that they contact Sandy Federico over at Elder Services. Okay. I know I was on a meeting with respect to the same issue a few months back, and she probably has a better update of where we are with that project.
Okay. And I know it's still something in place, though, correct? I know that there's...
I know that it was, and I believe it's either they've got it back up running again, or at least they're working on bringing it back, but I think it was pre-COVID.
Okay, yeah, because I do know it was a great program.
Yep.
It definitely was. But thank you for your work, and thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Brown. Councilor Whitfield. Counselor Whitfield. All right, we will come back to there.
I am here, sorry.
There you are.
Yes. Okay, my granddaughter, there's just a lot going on. But thank you, Mr. President. So it was a couple of comments that was made when we were talking about being creative with you know, working from home and things like that. So, you know, when we look at being proactive and seeing what we can do, it's better to try to figure out what we can do instead of making assumptions of what we can't do. Now, there's a department that get cars, and I don't know if other folks is like, I wish I can get a company car. There are departments that get to go on different conferences, and I don't know if other employees say, well, we would love to go on these conferences and morale goes down. But we are in an information age, and there is a lot of opportunity to grow with this information age, and it actually is a benefit to the city and to different employers when they do offer hybrid and work from home options. And you have a whole new set of folks that you can hire because of it, because there are brilliant folks that may be disabled, unable to leave their homes and things like that. So you're missing out on a whole candidate pool by saying, this is how we've done it. This can't be done because of morale. First, we don't know how morale would do. We don't know. It might improve. You got a whole call center that wish that during snowstorms that they could stay home and work from home when their kids are out of school in an emergency situation or their family members need taken care of. You know, that's an opportunity to hold on to great employees and offer them the benefit of being productive. So you're, like Councilor Hurst said, you're losing a whole day of productivity along with like a great employee. And so we got to get out of the mind frame of thinking how we've always thought. We got this stuff done during COVID. We got it done. We got it done. So it can be done. And we're just asking you to look into these opportunities instead of saying what we can't do and look into what we can do. So I don't know how you received that bill, but I think that I had a whole conversation today with someone that I was trying to have a discussion with, and it was just like, we can't. And I'm like, well, what can we do? Give me those options. Give me those opportunities. That at minimum, let's look into it. So Bill, do you think that that's something we could look into?
I think I answered that question with respect to Councilor Hurst, and as I said to him, the vast majority of our positions cannot be worked from home. And you can take that with the 480 police officers, the 250 firefighters, the 2,300 teachers, our building inspectors, our housing inspectors, our clerks and our vital records clerks and the city clerk's office, the election officials downstairs. These positions, these people have to come in.
And I don't know that the election officials have to be there. The whole staff have to be there every day. I don't think that's true. I maybe during election time, Bill, but on off season, when it's not election, I don't know that that's true, that every single employee always have to be staffed in-house in every single department. I don't know that that's true. And also in these departments that you're mentioning, there is administrative staff. There's administrative staff that will have the opportunity to work from home if they are allowed. So again, you still looked at what we can't do. You still looked at making an excuse of why we can't have hybrid or work from home opportunities in the event of an emergency, instead of saying, okay, let's just take a look at how it might work. That's all I'm asking. I'm not saying that it's set in stone that it can be done, but let's just look at the opportunity. That's why the city is behind some of the other cities in the Massachusetts Commonwealth right now, because the thinking, the thought process is still antiquated, and we have to move up with the times. So I'm just asking, can we look at the option? If the answer is no from you, Bill, it's no, I accept it. But I'm hopeful that the administration will look at other creative opportunities to bring in great talent into the city of Springfield instead of to keep thinking the way we've been thinking and losing the talent that we have. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Whitfield. Are there any further questions for Attorney Mahoney? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Mahoney. And just let the record reflect that Councilor Click Bruce has transitioned to virtual participation. Just want to give folks an idea of where we are. Currently, it's about 7:53. We have 5 departments left. They are sizable departments, but we do have 5 departments left this evening. Our next department is the Law Department. Solicitor Payne is with us. Judge Payne, the floor is yours.
Thank you, sir. Good evening. The Springfield Law Department has a budget for this fiscal year, upcoming fiscal year, of approximately $3.1 million. Of that, approximately $2.6 million is for salary and wages. The amount of money that is in the total budget does not include the approximately $2 million in the police misconduct account. Over the past year, we have made a concerted effort to add new attorneys to our office. Our number of attorneys was down significantly in the last number of years. In the last calendar year, we have added one new first associate, one new second associate, one new third associate. We have replaced 2 first associate attorneys who left the department, and we have added approximately 3 part-time attorneys. We have a total of full-time employees, if you take the part-time employees along and add that up, of approximately 33 full-time attorneys. And I would be glad to answer any questions that any of the counselors might have.
Thank you, Solicitor. Are there any questions relative to the Law Department budget? Councilor Davila.
President, good evening, Judge. Good to see you.
Good evening.
Judge, so I'm looking here, it says that you have approximately, according to what was given to us, 34.7 full-time positions. Can you break it down for me? I know you talked about 3 new attorneys and 3 part-time attorneys, but can you tell me exactly how many attorneys we have total?
Well, in the law department here, both in the main office, up on the 3rd floor in licensing and over in litigation, we have, I'm going to say, trying to do a quick count, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. With myself, 17, sir, full and part-time attorneys.
17. Okay.
Now, that does not include several of the attorneys that work in code enforcement, which is a subdivision of the law of the law department.
And so the difference will be between secretaries, paralegal, that make up the rest of the department, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, can you tell me, I see here we have a decrease of 3.5 full-time positions. Can you comment on that, please?
I'm sorry,
Yeah, I see here that you have a decrease of 3.5 full-time positions.
We have a decrease. Well, we still have a third associate we would like to hire if that was possible, but we haven't had any luck with that right at the moment. But I think that's pretty much where we are right now.
Okay, Judge, because I'm asking, because I see here it says a decrease of 3.5 full-time positions due to a departmental reorganization.
Well, I'm not quite sure. You know, we have vacant positions that we have not filled, and we're not looking to fill them right now. We filled what I think is necessary. If we had other positions, we could think about it, but we're not having a lot of luck. But right now, I think we're in pretty good shape with respect to the lawyers that we do have.
Okay. Now, Judge, how many lawyers do we have for litigation?
For litigation, we have we have 3 full-time, 3 part-time, and other attorneys in the office do take on certain cases. Some of them have asked to be able to do a little litigation, although that's not their the main focus of their job.
Right. And Judge, how much, you mentioned the police misconduct account. How much money did you say we have in that account?
Just over $2 million, sir.
2 million, and that's not reflective on the budget here. That will be a total different account, correct?
No, it is not.
I'm sorry?
It is not, sir.
It's not reflected here.
No, it's not.
Okay,
The 3.1 million is the total budget, not including the police misconduct fund.
Right. Judge, I'm asking because, as I look at the law department, I see the law department as a very critical department, a department that, as you know better than me, Judge, that can, what I call stop the bleeding, before something happens that could give exposure to the city and try to save the city money and the taxpayers. After all, that's the reason for all of us being here, the residents of the city of Springfield. But to be honest with you, Judge, one of the things that always gets me and concerns me is that when we are approached by the law department and we are asked to approve money for settlement, and the reason that we are giving is that we don't have enough staff to litigate, I have some feelings about that. It's the only way I can say it, because here we have about $2 million into the police misconduct account. And, you have a guy who is giving a lawful command by the police, and he decides he's going to run away, and the police chase him, and he gets tackled, then he gets scraped up, then he's going to turn around and sue us because he got hurt, quote unquote. Well, Judge, I know you know better than me that unless I fell asleep in class, there's no inherited constitutional right to get away from the police. But it seems to me that, in my opinion, the strategy, as I understand, has been explained to me, of settling cases, although it saves money, I question the effectiveness of it in terms of the morale. Because I'm hearing a lot from the police officers that have told me straight out, why am I going to do X, Y, and Z if, I might turn around, get sued, or, I'm not going to be supported. And so I've always said that good cop I will always support. The bad cops, they're going to weed themselves out, with our help, of course. But, Judge, I'm conflicted on that. And so I just want to make sure that you have the tools you need to protect us, to protect the city. And if you tell me that you think this is appropriate, then so be it. But to be honest with you, I do have mixed feelings about just approving a settlement just because it's cheaper than going to court. I yield the floor to you if you want to make comments.
I would just indicate, Counselor, we don't settle cases to avoid going to court. We settle cases after we have reviewed the issues of liability and the potential for damages that the city could face. We make an effort to make that determination based on the experience of the litigators in the department who have gone through a number of these cases. Unfortunately, in this day and age, if you chase after someone and you tackle them and you arrest them, the chances are you're going to get sued. And we're prepared to defend those matters. There's a whole change in the rules and the policies and the procedures that's going on right now because of the Department of Justice, and hopefully that will aid in limiting some of the exposure that we face. But we settle cases, particularly the police misconduct cases or the more serious personal injury cases, after we've made an assessment. We have the lawyers that can try the cases. and we have tried them, and we will continue to try them. But when we make a determination, when we make that recommendation, it's based on our best estimate and our experience, and that's how we go about that, sir.
You know, I'm encouraged to hear you say that. I know I can speak from experiences in other executive sessions, which I cannot disclose, of course, but I'm encouraged by what you have said, Judge. And so thank you. Thank you to your department. Thank you to you for the work you guys done. And those are my questions, Mr. President.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Councilor Davila. Councilor Hurst.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Councilor Davila. You actually asked a couple of my questions. And so I guess just to reiterate, Judge Payne, you said we do have enough litigation attorneys to handle the issues that, or to litigate the issues that you think need to be litigated. Is that correct?
I believe so at this point, Counselor. We have several cases that take up a large amount of time and effort, given the nature and the scope of the allegations that have been made, that we are defending vigorously. But I believe overall we have the litigation ability and the staff to handle the cases that are in front of us right now.
Is that just now, or is that something that you've always had? Because I too have, I've heard from similar officers who also feel as though, they want to see more of these cases be litigated, in which they feel as though there is no wrongdoing, and the idea is that, their thought process is that we're settling too quickly, so is this something new, or is this something that has always been the case?
Well, Counselor, I think, as you probably would recognize, there is a somewhat of a conflict at times between people in the law department and people in the police department who don't want to settle cases, just the way a lot of people don't want to settle cases who get sued. Because they feel that they're being unfairly criticized. And we understand that, and we work with that, and we try to explain that to the officers when we settle a case. But again, if we settle a case, it is because we have made a review, we've looked at the issues of liability, we've looked at the issues of the availability of witnesses, and we make that determination, and then we make that recommendation, and if we try to settle it, we try to settle it at the most reasonable cost to the city and prevent the city from experiencing a greater liability if the case went to trial and we weren't successful. And that's just a determination that we have to make.
Absolutely. My other question, do we have a breakdown of the number of cases settled by department, say over the course of the last 3 to 5 years? Is it possible to get access to that information?
Did you say to the last 3 to 5 years, Counselor?
Yeah, last 3 years. Is it possible to get access to that information? And then have we allocated a certain amount in this budget for just settlements in general? Am I missing that?
Well, I think let me answer the first question, the first part. I can certainly get you that information. I know that I could get you the information over the last couple of years that I have been here, and I can get that if you wish. We'll get that prepared and get that out to you. With respect to each year, there is a certain amount of money that is allocated for settlements. The type of settlements that we have every year for automobile accidents and trash truck accidents and so forth and so on that are fairly common, and fall downs and so forth, and those are usually a part of the budget. I think the city has to. I think the law department has to come back to the council every once in a while to get an additional allocation. But I think just recently, within the last couple of months, we settled a whole series of minor tort cases that the liability was 100% against the city, and so we came in with a package and settled those. But I can get you all that information if you'd like.
That would be great. Would love to have that information. And then my last question, and I don't know if you're the right person to answer it, but it has come up on a number of occasions. And, you know, I know we haven't necessarily, or the law department hasn't necessarily had an answer for the city council to have their own attorney. And then I'm also looking at the police commission to have their own attorney. Now, I know we're contracting with some outside third parties to do some legal work. Have we thought about allowing someone who is a third party to provide counsel to the city council? As I know, I was in a recent subcommittee meeting, and there certainly were some concerns about, you know, the law department and whether they were adequately representing the council, or were they, you know, more so siding with the administration. I get we all represent the city, but sometimes there are differing viewpoints. And so I guess, have we thought about having a third party represent the city council, and then in addition, the police commission? I've yet to see anywhere in this particular budget that highlights any of the wants or requests from the police commission. And so if you could just answer both of those questions, it'd be greatly appreciated.
Sure.
Maybe that's a question for the police department on the second half of it.
Well, with respect to the police commission, now that we have kind of upped our staff in the law department, I am assigning one of our full-time attorneys, one of our first associates, to be the attorney for the police commission, so that they have someone that they can rely on and talk to and ask questions of. You know, as again, I'm sure you're aware, most of the misconduct cases that come in front of the commission for violations of the rules and regulations, it's prosecuted by labor relations. And so the law department is there to provide some legal guidance to the council, to the commission. And now, as I say, now that we've staffed up, one of the attorneys, one of our new first associates, will be serving as that representative from the law department to the police commission. Again, with respect to the council, Ken Shea is assigned to the council now. His availability is there to deal with the different issues. I know you and I have a different view on this, but I have a very strong view that it's not good to have an independent attorney representing the city council, because quite frankly that can lead to differing opinions in legal cases and legal matters. And as I said to Attorney Davila a moment ago, you know, we make our determinations based on what we think is best for the city, and I just don't think that the idea of having competing legal counsel for both the city itself and the council can do anything but lead to some significant issues of liability. So that's my position, Councilor.
Got it. And would you make that same argument for the police commission, who is, you know, my understanding is that they're looking for more independence from an outside attorney? Would you make that same argument for them as well?
Well, I don't think so, because you know, you're almost we're in that executive and legislative branch of the government. The commission is a commission. It's not a separate branch of the government. And so I don't think I would make that same argument. What they need is some legal advice to make sure that they're following the procedures of the of civil service and the collective bargaining agreement, and today, more importantly, to deal with the issues surrounding the Department of Justice and the settlement agreement, and to make sure that they know that. And quite frankly, I think, Counselor, if you, I would be concerned also about the cost of that. You know, a private attorney would not come cheaply, I'm not inclined to go that way, but more for the other arguments that I gave prior to that than the cost.
Yeah, I appreciate your perspective. I think it does a lot from the public's perception of the police commission and their independence to have an independent attorney. And the fact that I've talked to the police commissioners and, you know, they were not or did not have a role in the budgeting process in general and some of the most basic things that they're asking for and that they've been asking for over the course of the last year have gone unfulfilled is equally problematic. And so I don't know who to talk to, whether it's you or whether it's the police commission. But when I look at them, even in terms of just staffing, stationary, PO boxes, phones, which you know, and having computers that are not attached to the police server, all of that requires money. And so while it may not solely be focused on an attorney, somebody that is close to the situation ought to acknowledge that they ought to have a budget themselves. And the fact that they are sharing attorneys, and I'd imagine that they're sharing everything else with the city, does not give off the, you know, does not show any level of independence from the police department itself, who they're in charge of holding accountable. Just my thoughts, you know, and maybe the police chief will have more answers as well from a budget standpoint. But thank you, Judge Payne.
Thank you very much.
Councilor Whitfield?
Thank you, Mr. President. Judge Payne, my question is around like handling of city council matters that come up as a request from the from my constituency. So at times I request documents, information through the regular channels, the department heads, and I can't get it. So that forces me to put in a public records request, which I also can't get the information because then the law department wants to charge $12,000, $14,000 for me to get information to do my due diligence as a city councilor. Is that the appropriate way to handle things, or is, you know?
Well, Counselor, if you're speaking about what I assume is the matter that we've been dealing with you over the last couple of months, you know, we are in the process. I think you received a letter from Attorney St. Laurent, which was a copy. You received a copy of the letter he sent to the supervisor of public records in response to how we're handling that matter. I mean, we try to be helpful whenever we can. I mean, but and again, I'm not trying to be critical, Counselor, but the request that you're talking about in specific would have required an enormous, and I mean an enormous amount of time to produce all of those documents. And we're talking about employees in the Economic Development Department working full-time for a couple of weeks to generate that sort of paperwork. And so that's the way that's why we took the position we did. I mean, if you're looking for specific documents that can be provided at a fairly quick pace, then you're always going to get our cooperation. But what this issue is that we're dealing with right now is just it's just an enormous amount of documentation that you were seeking, Counselor. That's all.
So, Judge Payne, I wasn't talking about that incident in particular because it's not the first time that has happened. So what I'm asking you, if I'm requesting something from department heads, is it legal for them to just ignore me, not give me the information, not say anything? Like, is that the right way to do business with a city councilor? That's the real question that I'm asking you, because certainly I wouldn't have to put in public records request if I request an application or if I request some information and it's not all of them and I don't get it, I don't even get a response or I don't even get an acknowledgement, it's then I'm like, what else am I supposed to do? And so I'm asking you, is that the appropriate way for the city administration to handle a city council request?
Well, Counselor, I would simply indicate that if at any point you are seeking documentation from any department and the department is not providing that information or not providing a legal reason why they wouldn't be giving you that information or couldn't give you that information, then I would expect that you could contact me directly, or you could contact one of my deputies or one of the first associates, and we will find out why a response hasn't been made. And if a response has been made that is not affirmative to your request, we'll find out why that request was not honored. And if it's not appropriate, we will make sure that it does get honored.
Well, thank you. That is like a breath of fresh air because sometimes I spin my wheels just to get an answer to set up city council subcommittee meetings with the administration. No one will answer at all. And I think that's very rude and unprofessional. But now I have another set of eyes that can look at it. So I will definitely take you up on that offer when these situations occur in the future to kind of like try to understand why I'm not getting cooperation answers, documents that I'm looking for, requests for meetings, and other things from the administration, because I just really think it's unprofessional to be that way. And we're supposed to try to work together to get answers for our constituency. That's my only goal. A lot of times when I ask these questions, it's because it was brought to me from community residents, and then I have to go back to them and say, well, I can't get an answer at all from the mayor's administration because they're just ignoring me. So in the future, I will definitely escalate it up to you or your deputies or your staff and see if we can work better together. So thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you, Councilor Whitfield. Are there any further questions for the solicitor relative to the law department budget? Councilor Davila.
Judge, just a quick question. So who's the attorney currently assigned for the police commission?
We have our newest first associate is an attorney by the name of Devin Grierson, and
I'm sorry, Denny.
I'm sorry.
What's his name again?
Devin Grierson.
Devin Grierson. Okay.
And he has been working with the office for the last month or so, and he has already started to engage with the Department of Justice settlement agreement and the drafting of the rules and regulations. And I think he would be I think he's going to be a very positive addition to assisting the commission.
Correct. Judge, is this Attorney Devin, is he working full-time with the police commission? That's
Yes.
his only case?
Well, no, it's not full-time. There's no reason for a full-time attorney for the police commission at this time. But that's going to be one of his set responsibilities.
But this Attorney Devin is a city employee, correct?
He's a full-time first associate city solicitor.
So he's employed by the city? He's
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
I see. Okay, good. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Judge. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just had a quick question for you, Judge, and I want to thank you for the work that you do also. With the actual lawyers who are dealing with a lot of the absentee landlords, like some of these different areas that they're difficult to find. How is that going? Because for some reason, a lot of times with these different entities who they're corporations that own different properties, and they're almost impossible to it seems like to even serve or get them in front of you. Have you found, is there a department that's doing that? Is that still something difficult that you guys are finding with some of these property owners?
Our code enforcement lawyers are working on that. It is a very difficult situation, as you've set out correctly, and the amount of cases that are pending, not only by the city, but across the board in the housing court, it's a challenging activity, but we're engaged and we're trying to make a headway because we know how difficult it is with some of these corporate landlords.
Okay, thank you, Judge. That was just, I just know that that is something that's kind of plaguing us in the city. I know that you guys are doing a good job trying to fight it, but I do know it's kind of like an uphill battle. Are you guys staffed enough? Because
we had a little bit of a problem for a month or so with some illness with one of the lead attorneys, but we're back on all of that, and it's something that we're making efforts to pursue that and aggressively.
Yes, I appreciate you, Judge. Go get them. Thank you,
Thank you,
Mr. President.
Counselor.
Thank you, Counselor Brown. Are there any further questions for the solicitor? Seeing none, thank you very much, Judge Payne.
Thank you.
Let the record reflect that Counselor Allen has transitioned to virtual participation. Our next department is the Office of Procurement, the Procurement Department. Good evening.
Good evening, Council President and council members. Procurement should be straightforward. The majority of our budget, the majority of our budget is our FTEs. I have 7. I have 1 vacant right now, so I'm in the process of hiring for that. My biggest line item is my advertising funds, which increased with the cost of advertising going up and the number of bids that we're doing this year due to ARPA and ESSER funds beyond what our normal procurement is for capital improvements and roadways, et cetera.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions relative to the Procurement Office proposed budget? Counselor Whitfield.
Thank you. Is this Lauren?
Yes, it is.
Hi, Lauren. I have a question for you because I have been getting some complaints about what is being required. This is specific to ARPA, and I don't know if you have a dedicated staff that works on ARPA, but folks are trying to get the funds that they've been awarded, yet I've been getting emails that you sent personally that says, okay, send these documentation, and they send them and you say, oh, we don't accept those anymore. You have to send these documentations, and folks are being asked to send documentation of the same documents over and over again. So I don't know if there's a procedure when you look at all the applications that you follow to make sure all the documentation.
I think you might be talking about another department. Maybe Lori Santinello? Because I don't handle any applications in my department. We're just strictly 30B and 3039M.
So you're not handling any of the requirements that are needed to award folks the ARPA?
If they're small business or residents, no.
No, you don't?
No.
Okay, so I guess
I think
have to
that's
go back
house, CD, and housing.
So who's the other person you were saying, Lauren?
Lori Santinello or Sibilia in the housing department, community development.
Okay.
That's who, sometimes people do email me regarding ARPA because they think it's me, but I end up forwarding them to community development.
Community development. Okay, well, if it's not you, I apologize.
That's okay.
And thank you for the update. But when you look at the procurement application, is there standard guidelines that you do have to follow? And as far as advertisement goes, is it diversity in where you advertise?
Yes, so a lot of them, when it comes to the construction and the roadways, we have different prevailing wages that Davis-Bacon that are federal, that deal with HUD and CBDG money that goes for funding these projects. And the state's affirmative action percentage is just a little bit higher than ours, or lower, I'm sorry.
Okay, and as far as advertisement go, can you just tell us a few of the places that you do advertise
So
outside? Mass Live and Republican?
Okay, so we have to advertise in the Republican. We advertise on the state's website called Combis under their grant divisions. We also advertise in the Central Register, which is another state publication that's published weekly. We advertise it on the city website, and we advertise it on our bulletin board in our office.
Okay, so as far as culturally competent advertisement opportunities, do you look into any of those? Because combis, if you're not really minority or SDO certified, you're not gonna get the combis notification. And if you're not SDO certified, you wouldn't even know to look at combis. And a lot of times you have to even register in that system. And folks who are not SDO certified normally don't use combis. And it's really difficult, like, to say, just go to the city's website, because folks aren't gonna know when the procurement, the information is coming out. And folks aren't just randomly gonna look in the city's website or any of the other state initiatives. So is there any culturally competent papers or advertisement or press that you use to advertise?
No, that would have to be something that we look into.
Okay, I would appreciate that if you did, because a lot of times our minority business owners of color don't know about these opportunities until the opportunity is gone. And I don't think that that is a fair process to be inclusive. And so if you could, we definitely have ideas on where you can advertise, maybe doing some radio cuts and things like that to let folks know that these opportunities are out there. And then I think you'll get more, more equitable applications then. So thank you for being open to looking into that.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Whitfield. Councilor Davila.
Mr. President, let me, I believe I gotta sit down for it. Sorry. Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening. I didn't catch your name.
Lauren Stabilo?
I'm sorry?
Lauren Stabilo?
Nice to meet you, Lauren. I'm Victor.
Nice to meet
Lauren, I'm looking here at the budget, and it says that you deal with the DPW, with Chris, for annual snow removal services from local contractors to handle the removal of snow, application of salt of city streets and road during winter storms. So my question to you is, did we, this might be a Chris question for later, perhaps, but did we do any kind of adjustment with the compensation for the contractors? Because I know that snow is always that never-ending issue.
Yes, I
always,
believe.
and there's multiple issues, but that affect, as Chris has kindly explained to me in the past, which is a fascinating, complex process. It's not as easy as grabbing a shovel and go out there and shovel. But one of the problems that at least I heard was an issue with compensation. How's that? Can you speak to that if you can? If not, I will ask Chris when he's up in the batter.
I know this year that the hourly wages were increased, and I believe the incentives to get your truck registered was extended, I think, into January, I believe.
So we extended to January to register your truck, and the scale was adjusted? Is that
Yes.
Is that what I'm hearing? Can you give me a percentage, or can you give me a overview?
That would have to be Chris.
I'm sorry?
That would have to be Chris.
That would be Chris. Okay, that would be Chris' question for later. Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Larry. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Davila. Are there any further questions relative to the budget for the Office of Procurement? Seeing none, thank you very much,
Thank
Ms.
you.
Stabilo. Our next department is the Parks Department. I believe the Deputy Director is here.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, councilors. I'd like to take a quick moment just to go over some of the activities and programs that the budget as presented will allow us to continue. As you know, we have over 50 parks throughout the city that we'll continue to maintain, over 120 terraces. Our swimming pool program will start July 1st. That includes the pool outside pool at Forest Park, as well as the pool at Harena. We have 21 splash pads in operation, soon to be 24 as we're adding splash pads at Blunt Park, Greenleaf, and Donna Blake Park. Our summer enrichment program begins mid-July, runs through the towards the end of August. That takes place at 4 camps throughout the city. And then in October, we have our after-school programs and our evening gym programs. Concerts at the park in Forest Park at the amphitheater begin this Thursday and will run every Thursday in June. We have movies at 3 parks starting in July, outdoor movies. Those parks are Marshall, Roy, Myrtle, and Kennebec. And every single weekend throughout the spring, summer, and fall, we have numerous events throughout our parks. Some of the big ones, obviously, everybody's familiar with Stone Soul. We got the Pride Parade coming up at Stern Square this weekend, a National Night Out, Juneteenth coming up, and the Salsa Sundays at the Riverfront. We have a couple of new events this year, very big, that will draw crowds to the city of Springfield. In a week and a half, the Ironman competition is coming to town with, they're saying, between 700 and 800 participants, as well as many spectators. And then a feather in our cap at Veterans Golf Course. The United States Golf Association is running its statewide junior amateur tourney at Veterans, so that's good. That's good news for our golf course. We'll continue to run our illegal dumping camera system to catch illegal dumpers. Since March of this year, we've caught another 10 or 11 people illegal dumping. We hand that over to the police department, and they cite these people. Our budget, there's an increase in our budget, approximately 14%. The majority of that is in OTPS. That's a couple of reasons for that. We are going to, right now we have 3 ROCA crews working in the city. That was on a trial basis. As of July 1, we've been funded to keep the 3 crews throughout the upcoming fiscal year. That's a $450,000 expense. There's an expense for new golf equipment at both of our golf courses. And some of the other increases are just like market increases on fertilizer, grass seed. We expect an increase of about $90,000 in water and sewer fees, as well as increases in natural gas and electricity. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Krupchik. Is there any questions for the Deputy Director, Councilor Davila?
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, Deputy. Just have some specific questions regarding the Clean Sweep program. Did I hear you correctly saying that ROCA is getting $450,000?
Starting in July for 3 crews, yes.
How much are they getting now?
Right now, the city's not paying right now. It's a trial basis. They've started, I believe it was maybe in February. The city is not paying for the services from when they started till the end of June.
Are they being offset by any other grant?
Pardon me?
Are they being offset by any other grant?
I don't believe so, no.
Okay. Can you give me an overview of what, as you understand that this initiative is?
I'm sorry, was that?
Can you give me an overview as you understand as to what this initiative is? What does it look like? What does it do?
What duties they perform?
Yep.
Yeah. Their main priority is litter throughout the city. When we get reports, the city established an email. I think it's litter@springfieldcityhall.com. When we get reports litter, we send these crews out throughout the city. One of the crews has been working diligently with our ball field crew to maintain our over 40 ball diamonds we have in the city. But their priority is litter trash pickup.
Where?
Throughout the city.
Right. And so let me say, Deputy, that I have learned that litter is one of those things that may not look sexy, but people care about, which I'm sure you know that as well as I do.
Yes.
And the more you talk about litter, the more excited people get, and the more passionate people get. First of all, I have to say that the ROCA initiative is a good start. It's a good initiative. I'm just kind of sorry that Pat is not here himself. You may or may not know that I myself, I created a leader advisory committee. We produced a report, and we made 13 suggestions. Have you read that report? Are you familiar with the report?
I have not, no,
you have
Counselor.
not. Okay. So I'm not going to give you all 13 suggestions, but I'm going to give you the first one, and that is to hire a director for litter. Somebody who is educationally competent and has the academia to handle that. Because as we all know very well, litter is never, just like snow, is a never-ending job. And litter is completely different than dumping. It will seem to me that $450,000 is a good start. I found it a little hefty, but I'm not going to knock the mayor and say he's doing something. I will do something different. So I take this opportunity to call on the mayor again to accept that recommendation and hire a litter director to really keep an eye on this, because right now what we have is we have a lot of people, different departments, running like a chicken with head cut off, trying to do their best in combating litter throughout the city. 3 crews. How many members per crew, Deputy?
There's a supervisor, and each supervisor has on average 4 to 5 to 6 people in his crew.
Okay, so we're talking about 22 or 23 people
Well, an average
total.
with the 3 supervisors plus, let's say, about 15 workers.
Okay. I'm trying to process $450,000. What does that get me? I'm really trying hard, and I'm going to continue. I am going to have a conversation with Pat and the mayor on this particular issue as well. So again, I thank you and the department for trying. If I may say, I think we've been, what is that good old saying says, we've been penny wise and pound foolish, something like that. Okay, in my opinion. Okay. I look forward to have a more robust conversation on this. I am questioning why so expensive. I know we did ask Mr. President before a budget line item before. We have not gotten it yet. I know that finance department said they're working on it. So that's really on my radar right now. Thank you. Thank you, Deputy.
Thank you, Councilor Davila. Just an FYI for councilors, the line item budget was sent by the finance office the day prior to our first hearing with the CAFO and Deputy CAFO. So if you don't see it, you can certainly request from the council staff to have it re-forwarded. Thank you, Councilor Davila. Councilor Fenton.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think that there were some really good points raised there by Councilor Davila, so thank you, Victor, for raising those. Litter's obviously a huge issue, and I think it's great and appropriate that resources are being committed to it, and also appropriate, as Councilor Davila outlined, to ask some questions about it. My only comment is I just want to say that from my perspective, parks have never looked better. I was in Forest Park this weekend over Memorial Day, and there were so many residents from all different socioeconomic backgrounds enjoying the park. It's absolutely the crown jewel, but all of the parks, they've done a terrific job maintaining. And with respect to Deputy Krupsak, I just want to thank you, Peter, for that work. I know, obviously, Pat is always pretty forward-facing in this department and gets a lot of credit, but I just want to acknowledge your efforts, and he's really excelled in a career at the Parks Department very quietly, and happy to see you here presenting before us tonight. I'll be very happy to support your budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. I just want to say we have an excellent staff of hardworking people that keep Forest Park and our other parks in great shape. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Fenton. Are there any further questions for the Deputy Director? Councilor Hurst? Councilor Hurst.
Thank you. I just want to make sure that every other park is treated like Forest Park. I did a drive around the area, I believe 2 or 3 weeks ago, so maybe your crews hadn't gotten out. But I went to Magazine Park, and I was not well. I didn't think that the resources or the same resources or similar resources that were invested in the Forest Park were invested in Magazine Park. Went to Johnny Appleseed, and we started talking about litter. The parks were strewn with trash. And then went down to, I believe it was Kennefic Park, and, was watching folks, sleeping on the benches, during the daytime. And then at Magazine Park, folks were out there drinking. I couldn't even take my son because folks were cussing right next to the basketball courts. And I was gonna let him play basketball while I was taking care of what it is that I needed to take care of. And I couldn't even do that. And I looked around on every bench. There were folks out there drinking open containers. So I don't know what we're doing in Forest Park that we're not doing in some of these other parks, especially in the heart of our neighborhoods. But I'm hoping that with the money that we have, we can reinvest some resources into those areas as well. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Hurst. Are there any further questions for the Deputy Director? Seeing none, thank you very much, Mr. Krupchak.
Thank you, Mr. President.
And we will move to the Facilities Department. Mr. Kerrigan.
Thank you, Mr. President, councilors. We remain grateful for the continued opportunity to serve the city of Springfield. Our primary responsibilities pertain to the day-to-day maintenance and repair of school and municipal buildings. Currently, we are requesting an increase of $184,000 to the overall budget. This covers $26,000 in personnel services, which is salaries and contractual increases. The balance of that, $158,000 to OTPS, which is largely increases to utilities. We've maintained relatively consistent level staffing with 28 FTEs on the municipal side. Our listed custodial vacancies have been recently filled as otherwise noted in the budget documents. Currently, the department has an aggressive maintenance project load in addition to day-to-day operations. We're accomplishing much of this work through a newly secured ESCO agreement with Siemens Technology. This is a DOER-sanctioned procurement vehicle, which is allowing us to quickly and efficiently mobilize on energy savings projects in schools and municipal buildings. In total, we're tracking approximately $40 million in maintenance renewal work at this time. This work is largely driven by school ESSER funding. We have secured a $6.2 million grant for improving ventilation and air quality for the Samuel Bowles School, in addition to that ESSER-funded work. We're currently pursuing an ECBDG grant for the carriage house in the amount of $190,000, which again we hope to run through ESCO. And we hope to continue to pursue additional phases of ESCO for other municipal and school sites. I wanted to also highlight that we recently locked in competitive utility pricing on both the natural gas and the electricity supply contracts, both very favorable rates, which should save the city substantial funding over the terms of both agreements. Thank you.
Thank you, John. John, could you just introduce yourself for councilors that might not be familiar with you? I know you often are behind the scenes.
Yes, Mr. President. My name is John Kerrigan. I'm Deputy Director under Patrick Sullivan, particularly overseeing the Facilities Division for schools and municipal buildings.
Thank you, John. Are there any questions for Mr. Kerrigan relative to the Facilities Management Departmental budget? Councilor Davila.
Thank you. Question, I think at the beginning of the meeting, 3.5 hours ago or so, the Superintendent Warwick was talking, and the issue of the lockers was brought up. Is that something that would be more on the school department side, or would that be something that your department can look at and help with as well?
I'm sorry, could you clarify the
locker situation?
Oh, the locker, central, the locker room?
Yeah.
Central locker room, yep, so we actually have met on site. We do have some work planned this summer going after the flooring in the Central High School locker room. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, Councilor Brown was talking
Oh,
before
yes,
about
sir.
the need to replace the lockers throughout some of the schools. I'm just saying, would that be more in your department?
We're
or-
certainly willing to support and facilitate that. We could do the assessment. We have two school zone chief who are very familiar with those buildings and work directly with these individual school administration. So we could certainly perform an assessment, take a looking at the lockers, and put together a competitive bid for that. We've done similar operations at other schools for repair and replacement.
So, John, if I heard you correctly, so if we were going to move forward to replacing these lockers, that would be you?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Thank you, John. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Davila. Councilor Whitfield.
Thank you, Mr. President. Hi, John. Thanks for introducing yourself. I've heard your name, but I didn't know that was you. So thank you for the introduction. My question is around, like, I don't know if you're the contact, but if, like, recreational organizations want to rent out city space for practices and things like that, are you the appropriate contact for that?
We might definitely be part of the conversation. So we would support scheduling the facilities through our automated BMS to make sure the building air conditioning and heating systems were scheduled for you. But I think there would possibly be some discussion with Patrick Sullivan and their permitting process as well to loop in the appropriate custodial, the appropriate support services for you as well. I think there's a combination there, but I'd be more than happy to support you and facilitate your requests if you'd send them to me.
Okay, no, I just, some folks are asking me the process and I don't know it.
Okay.
As far as scheduling gyms, and I don't know if all of them are open or some of them. And usually they have to pay the cost of the custodians and things like that, correct?
So, yeah, so there's definitely two very different processes there. On the school side, there is a permit coordinator, Jim Brashani. He would be the point of contact for that. And he would have all the information on the various rates and the custodial fees and the scheduling. He's the keeper of everything school-related. On the municipal side, I know we have a couple community centers. They operate sort of independently, but on those, I'd be happy to support you in that process, or at least connect you with the appropriate folks that would be best to answer your questions per site. But there are varying fees.
Outside of South End Community, what other site do we have?
I believe Raymond, not quite in the basketball arena, but Raymond Jordan, for example, does have facilities there for various purposes.
Okay, yeah. All right, well, thank you. I appreciate that information.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Whitfield. Councilor Click Bruce.
Thank you, Council President. I just have a statement per se. I know you mentioned Central High School getting looked at for some locker rooms. I just want to make it clear that there's other high schools in the city that actually need repairs, particularly at the high school conference where I've been coaching there for the past 7 years. Their locker rooms are horrendous. I know Central is our flagship school and they're doing great things. However, we just want to make sure we're looking at all of our high schools. I just want to make a point of reference on that for the record. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor. So noted.
Thank you, Councilor Click Bruce. Are there any further questions for Mr. Kerrigan on the facilities management budget? Seeing none, thank you very much, Mr. Kerrigan. We will move to our final department, last but certainly not least. We've saved it for you. Director Chris Signoli with the DPW.
Councilors, good evening. Chris Signoli, DPW Director. The Department of Public Works has two budgets. We have our general fund budget and we have our enterprise fund budget. Within our general fund, we have 80 employees, and within the enterprise fund, 56, for a total of 136 employees under DPW. For fiscal year 24 in the general fund, we are looking at a 4.2% increase. And in the enterprise fund, we are looking at an 8% increase. In the general fund, we have throughout the department, both enterprise and general fund, all contracted pay increases for all employees within the department, which is 2%. And the major items that we are dealing with for increases inside of the general fund include fleet management that has to do with servicing our vehicles and increases to gas and diesel, as well as increases to the amount of line painting that we have to do in the city on an average basis. Within the enterprise fund, over the past year, we have settled new contracts for bulk services, recycling, trash, and that has the majority of the increases that we are looking at. Bulk collection is a $130,000 increase, with a majority of that having to go to mattresses that we are having to get rid of. Recycling services, a $382,000 increase, with a new 3-year contract in place. Waste disposal for trash, a $56,000 increase, and increases in gas and diesel and vehicle supplies for the fleet that we have within the department.
Thank you, Director Signoli. Questions for the Director relative to the DPW budget? Councilor Davila.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, Chris. Can you just comment on the question that I asked before about adjusting for the contract for the vendors, the pay scale?
For snow removal?
Correct.
Within the advertisement that we put out for snow, we probably have 10 to 15 different categories for vehicles, all based on vehicle size. Over the last 4 years, every year, we've increased those rates anywhere between 5 and 10%. Last year, we initiated an incentive program, not just to sign up early, but an attendance incentive, so that if contractors showed up for every storm, they received a $500 bonus for each piece of the equipment. And I think in the end, we probably paid out about $40,000 for the incentive. We had a little bit over 100, about 110 vehicles signed up for this year, and about 80 of them showed up for every storm.
Very well. Now, Chris, you said you have two budgets. So I see one here, general fund of, is that, let's see. I see 5 million, 5.3 million, 7.1. So that would be 13 million, 12 million, plus 13 for the enterprise fund. So together it's about $25 million?
Yeah, it's about 25.9
Okay.
total, yes.
Very well. Now, the sidewalk program, I recall in one of our meetings that you were talking about we were getting some money for this from the state, and that we could use that money towards roads, Chapter 90. And I believe you were mentioning something about expanding the sidewalk.
The sidewalk program in the city, we have two things going this year. We obviously have our crews that are out doing work on sidewalk replacement. The past 2 years, the mayor has appropriated about $1 million a year for sidewalk replacements. We finished up the program from last year we're in the process of finishing it off this week. And then we are starting a new program of about $900,000 for sidewalk replacements throughout the city. So we're doing, a few hundred, couple 300 sidewalks, which each one of those programs. And then with our crews, we are doing sidewalks. Chapter 90 money can be used for sidewalks as long as we're paving that street. And it's limited to the amount of work that we can do. We cannot use Chapter 90 money just to go out and do sidewalks around the city.
Right.
There has been no state funding provided to the city for sidewalk programs in the years that I've been involved with the city, the 14 years.
Right. So, Chris, so that I understand you correctly, so the total for sidewalk, is it 1 million or 1.9 million?
It's about 2 million over 2 years. It was a little bit over 1, and this year it's a little bit over 900,000. So
Right.
last year we finished up about 1.1, and this year it's going to be a little bit over 900,000.
So how much are we using for 2024?
It's about 900,000. We already did that bid. The bid's been opened. It's been awarded. Inside the sidewalk program, we are also doing we get money from 3 or 4 different grant programs that we apply for. And I believe our total sidewalk contract this year is about 1.4 or 1.5.
Right, I understand. Excuse me. I know I said this before, Chris, and I know this is kind of if I had a magic wand, but I really wish we could increase that. I know I tell you that all the time. I know you heard that before from me. I know you probably want to see increase as well. I realize that. So, but I do believe that where there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah.
Right. The other comment that I will make, Chris, which I made it to you even before I got into the council, and you probably can say this verbatim, is the yellow sticker. It will create some revenue. I know that we have significant costs. I think you mentioned $50 per mattress to get rid of.
We're paying now about 32
per mattress
to get rid of, and it's still $8 for residents.
Right. So I will give you 100%, Chris, that the resident really gets a bargain with $8. I'd rather pay $8 all day long versus paying 32 plus the hassle of having to take it there myself. With that being said, my good sir, again, I'm gonna beat this drum again. Chris, we have got to make the yellow stickers more accessible throughout the city. To this day, and I don't think you're gonna give me an explanation right now, but I don't see why Big Y only has it. I know you have explained it before. I don't see it. I live in Springfield. I shouldn't have to go to East Long Meadow to buy a yellow bulk sticker. Even if it's cheap, it should be here. In every CVS, Walgreens. I do believe that the audit department is going to be doing a yellow sticker audit in the near future, if I'm not mistaken.
We already did it.
You did already?
We already did it, yeah.
Okay. I would love to see that report. I have not seen it as of yet. But again, Chris, I'm just beating my drum again. Okay. One day, those are going to be available in the city, throughout the city. So, because that impacts litter and illegal dumping as well. I mean, it's a bargain. I will pay for it. But a lot of people know about it, and that's a conversation for later as to why they don't know about it. Yeah, other than that, Chris, I always appreciate your work. I will give you my last 30 seconds if you wish to comment. If you don't want to comment, that's okay.
No, the only issue that I would say, Big Y has the stickers. They don't charge the city a penny. A few years ago when we were going through our audit, we looked at a bunch of different places. All of them want to charge. And the only way we were going to be able to keep the funds is that if we increase the bulk sticker, and we really don't want to increase the bulk sticker. And just for comparison purposes, if you live in Wilbraham and you want to get rid of a mattress, it's $40. So, we're keeping our costs as low as we can for the residents. All of the Big Ys in the area have the stickers, as well as the city clerk's office here as well.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Davila, Councilor Whitfield, followed by Councilor Kern.
Thank you, Councilor Letterman. Chris, I forgot who I was talking to. I'm so tired. You can keep the stickers at my house. Free of charge. Just joking. But there is a, so for the recycle, there's an increase of $350,000. Is that what, around the number?
Let me look here. 382,000.
Oh, 382.
Yep.
But don't we get like some type of credit back?
Yes, we get every month based upon a revenue calculation that we've done. We get back, our estimate this year is I think about 350,000. In the last couple years, especially during COVID, that number went up significantly because regular material wasn't around. So using recycled material, the costs went up a little bit. So we get back probably between about $350,000 of that. Our budget, our line item right now is going to be about 1.1 1.029. So in the end, we have about 650,000 in expense.
And, well, that's great. Like, that really offsets it a lot, you know? It'd probably be more because of my recycle, but, do we, first I'm losing my train of thoughts, old age and tired, but for snow and ice, did we have a surplus, in that account?
We're going to have, in the end, we're going to have a surplus, I believe, about 60,000, 60 or 70,000. Pat Burns is going to be coming in front of you, I think, next Wednesday, because he has to move some money from salaries to OTPS to cover funds that were put in, and in the end, we will be about $60,000 or $70,000 under the 1.591 number.
Oh, that's good. So do we request the same amount every year, or you still increased the?
No, we keep, for snow and ice, we keep the exact same amount every year. We're tied to various state laws that kind of hamstring us and all the other communities in Massachusetts as to what we can and can't do with that budget. We end up encumbering probably throughout the year, probably $2.2 million. And then when all of the contracts get liquidated for all of our plow drivers at the end of the year, we end up the past 3 or 4 years, we've come under the 1.591.
Thank you. And do we plow private ways or no?
Yes, we do.
Okay, because
Yes,
I
we
was
do.
gonna say, for the past couple of years, I've been getting great reviews on the snow removal, except for people that live on private ways. So I just want to say any improvement is better than no improvement. But I did want to just bring it to your attention about the private ways. But for the most part, the feedback that I was getting on the snow and ice removal was great. And then finally, I just wanted to say one day, I think it was a holiday weekend, my trash, I put it out late. And 3 trash trucks came by my house that day, and that was a blessing to me.
You're welcome.
They were doing overtime, but they were making sure that they were getting it done. And so I just wanted to say, I really love our trash system. I know people complain about the $90 and getting rid of the trash fee, but if you look at surrounding communities that have to buy their bags and then take their trash and to the dump themselves, the benefit of $90 or $75 for seniors is definitely worth it to me. I went out of town and I had to bag and take some trash somewhere, and I did not like that system. So I just want to say thank you and keep up the good work.
Thank you, Counselor.
Thank you, Councilor Whitfield. Councilor Curran, followed by Councilor Brown. Councilor Curran.
Great job to you, Chris, and your staff on the Liberty Street corridor. It looks great from the Springfield Plaza to the State Police Barracks. That was a major project. I know you cobbled the money together from a lot of sources, including State Senator Adam Gomez, who added a lot of funds to that project as well. But it's a great project for the neighborhood, and the street looks great.
Thank you. And we're having a nice press conference tomorrow.
We just kicked it off tonight.
Thank you, Councilor Curran. Councilor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I want to thank you, Chris. I don't know if I had a chance with the actual street next to Talk of the Town. I do know that it cost a pretty penny, and I know I complained a lot about it, but you did an excellent job. It looks does look beautiful. It looked like you guys, I know a lot of that stuff costs a lot of money. Is there anything that we're doing with a more futuristic approach on addressing some of the different techniques when it comes to, say, snow removal, paving, and things like that?
We are, when we're talking about snow removal, we've, I don't think not much has changed with the exception of a lot of the stuff that we do with our type of vehicles, going from whether straight liquid calcium to salt treated with liquid calcium. We've been switching back and forth on that over the years, and we've been using a lot more treated salt. It is much more expensive, but we've been using a lot more treated salt. A lot of our vehicles that we used to be able to balance liquid, we have a very, very difficult time doing that in some instances. So we've been doing a lot of that with regard to sanding and salting. This year and over the past few years, we only have a handful of plow events, but we probably have 20 plus sanding and salting events. So we are more concerned about the daily sanding and salting and overnight. Most people never see those operations because they're all overnight. Making sure that at 6 o'clock in the morning when everybody's going to work, the roads are in decent condition. So we've done a lot of switchover with different types of material for the salt that we've been using over the past few years.
I do realize that it has been a significant improvement. So I do commend you for that, Chris.
Thank you.
I've just seen studies where there was organizations that actually recycled nip bottles and cut it up and made streets, made little small rubber stuff and made streets out of it. You know, I mean, I know that's something, do we ever look at some of the new science that's out there?
The recycling material that we have obviously goes into the recycle stream. The pavement material that we use for our paving program is 100% controlled by the state. We actually use a material called Super Pave, which has a lot more what's called RAP, which is different types of material, including sand, including recycled plastics, including different types of asphaltic material in there that are not as expensive in certain cases. However, when we get the state money, no matter where we get it through a grant, we are required to use that specific material.
Okay, all right. And I was just curious. I definitely appreciate the work that you do. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Brown. Are there any further questions for the director relative to the DPW budget? Final call for questions for the DPW. Seeing none, thank you very much, Director Signoli. That concludes our departmental hearings for this evening. We will reconvene tomorrow at 5:30.